what is the disagreement that you think you have with me in terms of like how I form my opinions or how or what I believe in? Do I believe in an ideology? Am I crypto tanky? Like I'm asking you, like what are the
I don't think it's a problem with you or your ideas specifically. I think it's just like, for the most part, most people here are for entertainment. And it feels good to see somebody with a lot of depth of knowledge and somebody who's like willing to share all that knowledge. And at first, it's like great. You pull people in and it's very interesting and you feel engaged and you feel like you're actually learning something about the issues. And then eventually the advocacy, like how passionate you are about actually trying to make a change and be an advocate for all of it, is refreshing. But at the same time, Destiny isn't like that at all. Like the only real reason I feel like he was talking to you and into socialism is because that was the topic he was kind of moving on to, right?
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for it. I originally thought that we had like a similar opinion that we wanted to de-radicalize gamers and stuff. My reason for wanting to de-radicalize gamers was because I think that like spiritual mysticism is bullshit, especially like like especially when it's like alt-right Nazi ideology. It's all based around like nonsense, like oh racism, like that's the different races are different from one another. I think that's bullshit, and that's precisely why like scientific racism doesn't stick. But they try to make it more scientific and objective. But like my worldview is materialist, so I I wanted to showcase that um like I wanted to showcase that to different people. Like I wanted to showcase that to people who had been de-radicalized.
Do you mean just in general or specifically
Our
when
spiritual
engaging with Destiny
mysticism.
chat?
Sorry, spiritual mysticism is not like what I'm trying to say is, um, race realism, and because people in the chat are upset, but race realism or like basing your entire ideology off of like having an in group and an out group and claiming that like for some weird reason this in group is better, that kind of spiritualism is bullshit. It's not.
Yeah, no, like I think everybody agrees with that for the most part. But I think a big part of it, and I think it's exemplified in DG chat versus Hasan, is it's hard to recognize and hard to get away from because your social group, the people you hang out with, are part of that in group. So to get past that is pretty hard. And like you advocate for a lot of that, which is great. But just because we understand it or just because we're doing it doesn't mean we can get past it.
Wait, but you're just like admitting that you okay.
Sorry.
I don't understand. Okay. What I'm failing to understand is like it feels like a lot of people have genuine criticisms on Reddit and on DGG and wherever I go. And I want to hear the genuine criticisms expressed by people who are in DGG.
Well, I think
or like people in Destiny's fan base who used to be fans that are no longer watching and like legitimately think that. So
I guess the biggest criticism that you're going to get is like you attacked Destiny, right? Regardless of why, or regardless if it was just or you're morally right to do it, you attacked their dad, and they're going to respond. I think that's what it fundamentally comes down to. Unless
dude, you guys are all gonna get fucking banned in DGG, and I quite frankly, I don't even think that's like so unreasonable. What the fuck? I thought there was like there has to be something more. There literally has to be something more than just like you attacked Destiny. Everyone is such a fucking lion when it comes to their chats. Like I'm giving you guys an opportunity to fucking blow my back out intellectually. I thought you guys were all doing like rigorous intellectual exercises every day. You're doing like mental push-ups, reading all the Wikipedia articles. And now it's like everyone, it seems like everyone's just coming here and being like, yeah, it's kind of a cult. Which okay, I don't even think it is.
Well, let's turn it around. What do you think is the most legitimate criticism that DGGers chats have? Or do you just think it's all bullshit?
Well, originally I thought there was a lot of legitimate criticism, but after seeing the like the glaring inconsistencies and the way that they like defend, the way that they now mirror talking points that they once attacked viciously, makes me feel like, oh, it wasn't actually like critical thinking at all, and that it wasn't actually people critically thinking at all, and it was just like people just repeating talking points that they hear as a form of their like primary entertainment, or like as a form of like their political consumption is just entertainment for them.
Well, I think they get that a lot from Destiny, because I think fundamentally he's a populist. Like he's not going to go against the popular opinion in almost any instance. I mean, that's kind of how he debates or how he discusses anything with people. He just wants to make sure that he's doing the thing that most people believe in, so he'll get less flack or he can feel more confident in his position. And you're not like that at all. Like, you take a stance against something that most people don't. And just to get on to another point, I think one thing that really triggered Destiny, and again, I'm just mind reading or guessing, I feel like he talks a lot about when he first started. He was more right, and he was kind of brainwashed. And eventually, he kind of just realized, like, oh shit, like all these people are crazy, and I was just following it along. And I feel like he felt that a little bit with the left stuff. Like, he was getting into the socialism, he was getting in, talking with you, becoming more sympathetic to that side, and then he just started looking into some of the darker stuff.
Like
And then
what?
well, just like tanky stuff, just the stuff like he read or watched a documentary about famines that the USSR either created or allowed, and how that was kind of devastating. I think at that point he's kind of like, oh shit, there's a lot of dark side of this stuff that I was kind of ignoring, and I feel like he just kind of felt duped by that. That wasn't part of the
Why
message.
were people saying that like famines did not happen under the USSR? Is that what was like? It almost seems like it literally feels to me like when like a Nazi kid gets radicalized when they hear the 13% but 50% violent crime statistic for the first time. It's a lack of your personal education leading up to this moment that makes you so susceptible to like hating socialism. If the way you're describing it, that's what it sounds like. I don't think that's the way. I don't think that's what it was. Like, especially
I think
considering that there are plenty of like food shortages that occur under capitalism all the time. 8 million people die every year as a consequence of famine globally, and like diseases related to famine.
do you mean in general for DDG chat or Destiny, as far as not having enough knowledge about socialism or leftist ideas like the USSR before going into it?
I guess maybe, I don't know. I'm just operating off of what you told me, but I don't even believe that. I don't even think that's the case. I don't know what it is,
You
but
really don't know?
okay. I hold on. Sorry. And only Mr. Mutiny, you can manually unban. I can't vouch for him. Unban him if you want and take the chance. Okay, no, fuck that. If he's been banned from if he's been banned, I'm not gonna do that. Okay, so do you, fuck, do you have any other problems? Like, do you think I'm a crypto tanky? Do you think that
No,
every negative comment in the subreddit is actually a Chapo Cell Brigade or a Hasan Brigade?
well, I think you readily like recognize and you admit all the time that you get. I guess I don't want to use the word trigger; it's overused, but you let yourself get passionate about what people actually say, and as soon as you let that happen, and that's fine, it's part of your charm and your passion is nice, but people are just going to keep doing it, right? Like, even if they are the minority and even if they don't believe it, they're just still going to say it because it gets a rise out of you, and I think you know that, and you can't help it, but it's what's going to happen. And I think the part that DGG hates the most is just like they all fantasize about a year or two from now, not anytime recently. You guys will make up, maybe that you're not streaming with each other, but you can actually just like talk civilly to each other, even if it's off stream. It just feels like such a shame to we see this friendship that seems to be going pretty well. You're helping each other out, hanging out in real life, and then it feels like just because you both have big personalities, you start clashing, and then you can't rectify that. People can be people and do dumb shit and try to just understand each other. But
I mean, it doesn't seem like people in the DG community or some people in the DG community want us to make up. It doesn't matter anyway. Anyway, that's besides the point.
I know. I'm just saying that's what a lot of, or I imagine a lot of us hope, even though it
Okay.
doesn't seem possible at this point. I don't know. Sorry, I couldn't be more spicy. It sounds like you don't want people to come in and start screaming gamer words, but you do want them to come in and start yelling at you for your shit opinions.
I do. I want. That's exactly what I want to hear. I want to hear someone. I want to hear from someone who has a genuine disagreement, and like why they have a genuine disagreement with what I have to say, and why. I mean, this is basically like, isn't this exactly what Steven does, where he like says something that's purposely triggering or whatever to own the libs, and then when they come in, he's like, "Hey, buddy, let's have a conversation." So, I mean, this is something that the DGG audience should be used to, right? As they do this quite frequently. So, I wanna, I'm not triggering anyone, or I haven't said anything purposely like explosive or whatever. These are genuine opinions that I hold. So I want to hear someone from DGG be like, "These are the reasons. You're fucking dishonest. You're crypto tanky. All the stuff."
Yeah, well, I was going to talk about that a little bit as well. I feel like the other big thing with Destiny, as far as he's not being an advocate, he doesn't actually fundamentally care about any of these issues on a level that he would put a lot of skin into the game like you would. But I feel like he basically goes into small communities that would provide a lot of content, and then once he's pumped that well dry, sort of thing, he kind of just moves on. Like I think he even said recently, like once I get back, we're gonna have one more week on commies or the left or whatever. We're gonna hit it hard, and then we're never gonna talk about it again. Like
So
that's not really a legitimate. I don't know. It doesn't feel like a good way to like engage with anything if you're just gonna forget it or move on at that point.
okay, all right.
All right, it was good talking to you.
Thanks for coming on. Next next caller. This guy doesn't disagree. Yeah, I'm shocked, but then again, I think it's not easy to come in and be like, this is my opinion, this is why you suck or whatever. After Ragepope is legit and Destiny, I will argue the fine points on Ragepope is legit. Where is Ragepope? Nobody in DG has heard of Iron Toss. Okay. Okay, he's the band guy who I mentioned. XOptimusPrimateX. Proposing a school shooter meme. Okay, well, tell him to reach out to me directly. Can he not? If I can get his Optimus Prime, is he Optimus Primate? Is he good? DGG here. You lose your temper very often. Okay, get in the Discord. The optics aren't good. Seems that you don't have the control over yourself. A lot on the left don't want to be affiliated with that. Let's have a conversation about that, buddy. If you wanna come in. Optimus Prime is alt-light and Ian Miles Chong fan. Debate Ragepope instead. How is he both a...
Excuse me. I'm sorry.
How is he both a DGG fan and how is he both a Destiny fan and an Ian Miles Strong fan? That doesn't make any sense.
Yo-Yosana got banned from Discord and Twitch chat for telling a guy to cuss. It's about the Discord, but can I get a chat unban?
Wait, what happened? You got banned on Discord because you did what?
I'm sorry. I'm out of control. I apologize for that.
From Twitch chat for telling a guy to kill yourself. I don't give a fuck about the Discord, but can I get a chat unban? All right, don't give me money if you want to get a chat unban.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm out of control. I apologize for that.
Talk to one of the mods. Ragepope should have messaged you by now. Oh, he did. Okay.
Excuse me.
All right, I hope he doesn't fucking say some...
I apologize
no shit, I'm calling him now. Someone tell Ragepope I'm already calling him. Oh, hey, what's up, man? You're not gonna say any fucking gamer words, right? Okay, cool. Fuck, I gotta pee.
Someone's livelihood, so.
Okay, what's up, Ragepope? Let's talk to me.
Cool, great. So I guess I got two big issues with one. I guess the first one, you say you're a socialist, right? Do you mean like economic socialist or political socialist?
Am I an economic socialist or a political socialist?
Yeah.
Well, I think the economy and politics is deeply intertwined. Anyone who
Sure,
separates
but
one another from is either right wing, or thinks that there's like
sure,
cultural
but I mean, if you
Marxism,
if
or
you could
maybe
just
like
go
an
look at like
anarchist. I don't know.
if you look at like Caleb Maupin's debate with Destiny, right? So he kept advocating for socialism, but what he wanted was a mixed economy, right? Because he still wanted private ownership. So he
I
was
can't speak for Kale. I have no idea who
oh
this
yeah, yeah,
person
yeah,
is
sure,
or what
sure.
he
But like,
said.
I guess, yeah, right. But I guess there's a difference between political socialism, is where you want the government to essentially redistribute wealth to people and things like that, or there's like actual economic socialism, which is a state-planned entire economy.
No, there are different ways of implementing socialism,
Uh,
and one of them, like socialism, or at least
well, it's
Marxism, would be.
definitionally like economic socialism by definition is state-run economy, either through state capitalism or through state determination of all prices, right?
Okay, I don't agree with that definition because
But
considering
that's
that, well, no, here's why I don't agree with that. Because then you have a situation in which, like, because the Chinese economy is heavily regulated and heavily centrally planned, or the USSR is was centrally planned, that it's not like state capitalism, and that it's actually perfectly socialist. And I don't believe in that.
oh,
This is something that this is like a
sure,
significant criticism that I have with Stalin to begin with, that
yeah,
obviously has
absolutely.
led to problems. It can be very successful in certain areas, but gigantic
Oh,
problems in food shortages in others.
yeah, absolutely. So you're not, I guess, like an economic socialist. It's a political socialist, and you want redistribution of wealth to affect those or to help those who are most affected, but you don't necessarily agree with the state needs to plan everything in the economy. Is
I,
that
I
correct?
I'm failing to understand this framing that you're engaging it
This
with.
isn't framing. This is literally a definition. I'll send it to you right now.
Okay, I mean, like, what? Can you explain to me what Can you explain to me what economic socialism is? Yeah, or you can send me
Oh
the
yeah, so
definition.
it's when you have a fully state-run economy, right? So everything in the state is owned by them or is run by them. So
So why is like, I don't know, why would like if
it's a planned
let's say in
economy.
a hypothetical economy where we have anarcho-syndicalism, you would not consider that to be like a socialist economy. It would just be political socialism. Like, I'm confused about the semantics, and it seems
Anarcho-socialism. So
significant.
there's no. So let me look up.
Is it only centralized planning in your
Uh,
definition? Is it only
yes,
socialism? Is it only
yes,
economic socialism when it's centralized? Okay, well,
yeah,
that's
yes, yeah.
and what do you exactly mean by like centralized planning? You obviously don't consider
So
like
you either
subsidies, for
have.
example, to be centralized planning. Or
I don't think subsidies are centralized planning. I don't agree. Well, I guess you do need subsidies for some things, and not definitely not to the extent that we have corporate subsidies in America right now. But state planning is saying like we're going to produce 500 gallons of oil, we're going to produce 300 pounds of wheat,
I'm
and we're going to
not
produce 12
God.
cars to ship off
isn't
to
that
somewhere
how we
else, right?
do? But isn't that how we already do subsidies? Like, how do you think agricultural production works? Like,
What does that have to do with the definition of a socialist thing? I fail to understand that, and I agree that we shouldn't be subsidizing a lot of these
okay, so
farmers in the
you
ways that
agree
we
with
are.
it, but I'm saying, but you would also agree that the current American structure is capitalist. But now
Oh,
you're
yeah,
using.
yeah,
But
no.
now I
So,
feel
so
like you're.
there's definitely a lot of crony capitalism involved in American capitalism as the way it is, right?
Certainly. I mean, I think all capitalism is crony capitalism.
Okay,
I'm
sure.
an
Yeah, we can
anti-capitalist. That's one
anti-capitalist. Sure.
opinion I
Okay, great.
have. But
Okay, cool. So I guess what economic system would you have to replace capitalism?
I think the economic system that we should be, the economic system that we replace capitalism is in early stages social democracy through a series of reforms and nationalization of the extraction industry, and then other industries that have
Okay, so
inelastic. Well, you asked me, do you want me to
sure,
complete
sure,
it,
sure.
or would you consider that gish galloping? Because we can go point by point if you want.
I think point by point is fine. So you're saying that
Okay,
you want nationalization of resource economies, right?
yes. Well, nationalization immediately for the extraction industry in a way to, and
Is
also stopping our over reliance on fossil fuels while using the profits from the extraction industry to spend money on social safety nets and also R&D
Sure, but
on
why?
like energy, green energy initiatives.
Sure, but why can't we do that underneath a capitalist system that provides more wealth, right? So I guess if we just start with the first point that you had, which was
Because the privatization.
nationalization.
Well, you asked me a question.
Sure.
Because the privatization element and the profit motive stops us from being able to do that for especially
That,
for the
that's a
fossil fuel
government failure.
industry.
That's a government failure, not a market failure, right? So the government should be stepping in to regulate with Pigovian taxes and subsidies for things like education, right? In order to make sure that the effects actually and the cost reflect whatever the effect is on the economy, right? So we can agree that when we burn fossil fuels, that it's really bad for the air, right? But we can also agree that I like turning my fucking lights on and I like being able to get on Twitch and watch my favorite streamers, right?
Why do you think it's completely? Why do you think it's impossible to do that? Wait, like, do you think that, for example, in Norway they don't have Twitch or they don't have the things that I'm
they're not.
mentioning?
They're still capitalist. They
Yeah, I
still.
know, but they're further along. You asked me what my opinion is, so I'm giving
Sure.
you what my opinion is. Originally, through a series of straight reforms, we move to a social democracy, like fully implement social democracy, and
Okay.
slowly but surely we start nationalizing the extraction industry, and then also healthcare industry in its entirety, and
Okay.
other industries where where the government should provide like basic necessities for survival, including housing. So that's my opinion, and that's the early stages, and then finally
Sure.
implement
So
reforms to like democratize the workplace through a series of like legislative efforts that are currently taking place in the UK, for example. Like Jeremy Corbyn famously advocates for the workplace democracy bill that he put forward that that offers workers the first right of refusal for like before an IPO or before a company goes bankrupt to turn that corporation into a cooperative.
sure.
Financing this would be
can
through
we start
public banks.
with which is just the nationalization of extraction industries, right? So
No,
when
this
we're
is
talking
after
about that.
that. I'm saying like
Oh
this
no,
is
sure, sure. But I guess I want to address this point first, right? So the first thing you want to do is nationalize extraction industries. Is that correct? Am I understanding you correctly?
yeah, I want to nationalize extraction.
Okay,
Yes, it's
great.
successful. It has worked in other companies. I mean, not companies. Sorry, it's worked in other countries.
Can you name a couple countries where it's worked in nationalizing the extraction industry?
Norway.
Norway. Okay. So that's one.
That's it.
All right.
And the other countries
So
where
if
it
you look
hasn't
at
worked are countries where the U.S. has meddled in that nationalization process. Like
are you gonna
like
say that?
Iran is what I'm referencing, or Venezuela is what I'm referencing. And
So
also there are effective ways of doing it, like Norway, and then there are ineffective ways of doing it where, like in Venezuela, I think that completely like firing all of the existing staff and putting like party members in positions of power over that entire industry is not necessarily a good way of doing it.
all right. So let's start with Venezuela. So with Venezuela, what originally happened with them, right, was all their
Saudi
oil
Arabia.
extraction. No, I'm not going to talk about Saudi Arabia. I mean, we can talk about Saudi Arabia if you want to, but if you look at Venezuela, what happened was all of their skilled labor in terms of oil production came from all these foreign companies, right? So essentially, the oil service industries like Citgo and all those other people, or not Citgo, fuck. Can't think of it off the top of my head, but essentially they ran all of their oil refineries, right? And so Venezuela forced them to sell to them, and they didn't want to. So Venezuela came in with guns and they kicked them all out, and they ran their factories into the ground and refused to pay these oil companies the value that their stuff was worth until they ran the oil refineries into the ground.
Can
And
I
then even
can I
after,
ask you a question?
sure,
Why are you talking about Venezuela when I already admitted that it was not the most
sure.
successful implementation by literally mentioning exactly what you did, but not
Okay.
as descriptive as you
So
did
because
just now?
honestly, I'm nervous as shit. I'm in front of 2,500 people. Like I usually only talk to like 10 on my
Okay,
stream.
but did you not hear me when I said
Uh,
there are successful implementations like Norway or
no, sure.
or
So
or
if
like
you want to look
Gulf
in aggregate
countries?
in terms of resource extraction economies, right? On average, most of them fail. They're less successful than the other ones,
Would
and
you
they
say
don't
that?
spread out to other industries.
Okay, would you say that the countries with nationalization efforts fail when they don't have the economic power to go against private capital and their interests, and the interest of private capital, which is to maintain the privatization of these extraction
No,
industries, specifically in Venezuela or also in Iran, for example. Another very famous example of nationalization efforts gone awry.
I mean, would you say Russia's a nationalization effort gone awry? I mean, they're a resource extraction economy that's doing horrendously.
Do you think? Wait, I wouldn't even consider Russia to be. I wouldn't even consider Russia to be like a social democracy at the same level of like social
Sure,
democracies
but
fail and social democracies
they're
work.
still a state-planned economy.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you look at all the state-planned economies around the world, the only one that's doing remotely successful, it's China, right? And that's still state capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I fail to see why going to a state-planned economy, right? How is that going to be more effective than running a capitalist economy, which provides more resources for the people, and then have a government that allocates more appropriately,
Wait,
right?
do you? Okay, but you criticize China, right? You don't.
Oh yeah,
Okay, so you
I
don't think that's good.
I don't think it's no. I don't think China is good, right? I think China's the
What do you
most
think like
successful of the
state
bunch.
planned economies are then? If you said that Russia is state planned, like do you just think it's state planned economies if like 8 oligarchs control the major industries? Is that like would you consider that to be a state planned economy? Is that what it is?
I mean,
Technically it's Russia
no,
is
it
like
wouldn't be.
supposed to be a libertarian paradise if I'm not mistaken, or at least post USSR Russia.
It's not really a libertarian paradise, right?
Why? Is
Uh,
it because it's not
what?
working
I'm
in the way
not
that
God.
No,
capitalism is
absolutely not. I
supposed to?
don't.
Overzealous
I'm not a
bait.
libertarian. No, it's essentially it's a full on 1920s Gilded Age capitalism is essentially what's happening there.
Would you not say that that's happening in America?
No, we're way past that. I mean, we had that originally, but it's not as bad now. I think a huge problem that we have in America is just poor regulation, not necessarily capitalism gone amok.
Okay. I'm just trying to work within your framework instead of like
Oh, sure.
taking
So I
this.
guess
I'm trying to work within your framework instead of taking this outside of
okay.
that framework by saying no, like that's actually not capitalism gone awry. That's just capitalism.
No,
And
yeah,
because
that's
like all
rampant
of our
unchecked
institutions,
capitalism.
all of our
So there's a
institutions are controlled by capital and the power of
there's
capital.
a fundamental difference between like full blown like mercantilism and capitalism, and then well regulated capitalism, right? So there's things that we understand that we need to have in order to make sure capitalism works. Capitalism makes sure everyone gets, or the pie in general is the biggest. But you're right, a lot of people get exploited and fucked. But what you need is you need a government on top of it. I would say more towards a social democracy, wherein you take the things that are going bad, and you help the people who are marginally more affected, and you help the people who aren't getting food, and you ensure that there's a fair playing field for everybody. But the goal of capitalism, even a heavily or very heavily regulated capitalism, is to make sure that there's the biggest amount of pie out there, and then distribute it so everybody at least gets some of it, and everyone's pie is always growing, right?
Mm-hmm. What do you think are the reasons why we haven't reached this utopian capitalist ideal that you have?
Uh, I mean, we're slowly pushing towards them the same way that people have been slowly pushing towards other ones. I mean,
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
God.
As right
Do
as
you
Bean
do
has
you
left.
can you describe that a little bit further for me? Like where are we
oh,
slowly
sure, yeah.
pushing towards it?
I guess if we start with like the free hand of the market, 1776, right? The invisible hand of the market guides us, right? And so that's essentially what took over all the major companies at the time, right? The British East India Company exploiting India, all the other major companies around the world, right? So that kind of culminated in the 1920s with like the Great Depression, right? Where they were just giving out loans left and right. We have the huge stock market crash, and then everything bottoms out. And then we realized that, hey, letting unfettered economics go, where you have big multinational conglomerates wrecking people left and right, driving businesses out of ground by holding oil prices at unsustainable prices, things like that. So that goes away with capitalism 2.0, right? That's essentially the Keynesian economics, right? Well, we need to deficit spend during recessions in order to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that people, and that also comes about when you have the antitrust amendments from the 1910s and 20s, all right? And so that goes fine and well for the next like 50 or 60 years. Uh, until we get
So
the 1980s stagflation,
why
right?
exactly? So why did it unwind once again? By the way,
Oh,
like a
sure.
lot of the stuff that you mentioned, especially about like regulatory forces on like unfettered capitalism, are not just like, I mean, it's
Are
like
there any?
Adam Smith had opinions like that as well. It's not just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not like a relatively, it's, yeah. I mean, I get Keynesian economics, but it's
Oh,
not like
sure.
an,
We're done. Okay. So
okay.
yeah.
Which,
So
by the way, we are not in disagreement up to this
oh
point.
no,
I already
I
told
think
you that I am. I
I'm
already
not
told you that like I
God.
believe that
Has got
these
you eyes
these
over his
regulations need
David's got you.
to be instilled immediately. But go on.
sure. Yeah, yeah. So I guess capitalism 2 lasted through stagflation in the 1980s, ended with Reagan and Thatcher, and that's where we got a lot of the big banking regulation coming through and things like that, right? And so that's when we started messing with interest rates in order to essentially control the economy, right? Heat it up, slow it down. Uh,
Uh huh.
and then capitalism 4 is what we're kind of working in now after the 2008 recession, right? So, shit, sorry.
Okay. So why is it failing? Because you
Why is it
originally
failing?
said we're incrementally getting better, but I would consider that to be, I mean, I consider these sorts of, I mean, these significant economic meltdowns to be, like failures, right? And ultimately, like
Sure.
capitalism has not, the utopian capitalism that you describe has never existed. Just
Oh,
like
sure.
the
But neither has
utopian
perfect
socialism or
utopian.
the
Yeah.
utopian communist ideal has never existed either. Both of them have in practice been relatively violent.
Yes. But I guess well, one big argument I would make. Oh, sorry, dude. I'm stressing out. There's a
Don't
lot
worry
of
about
people.
it.
Sorry. So
You're doing great. I think you're describing your position, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
it's
So,
not. But what
but
I
do you want
simply don't
do you
understand.
want empirical? I guess do you want like empirical? So I guess let's just talk empirically, right? So let's look at East versus West Germany, or let's look at USSR versus West Europe in terms of
Why?
work.
Because but like you're again, you're going to bring up
Yeah.
examples of things that I don't necessarily agree with anyway.
But
So
I'm not describing policy issues. I guess I'm just talking about efficiency losses, right? So if you look at like the USSR, like the average USSR worker, they were about 30% less productive. If you look at then the equivalent Western worker when you control for capital, right? If you look at China, they're still less efficient per worker even when you control for capital, right? So it seems like if you're going towards a state-run economy, at least empirically, anyways, you're always going to be less effective under like a state plan system. So it seems like you're just getting less of a pie, and that's not something that you would want.
um
Uh,
I just it's I don't wanna like attack you on this,
sure, no,
but
no,
it
no, please.
really seems like you're arguing against like a you're just like dishing out talking points when I already mentioned that this is not something I care to defend. But if I were to defend it, I would probably say
Okay.
something along the lines of like, what do you mean under
So,
efficiency? I mean, again,
so
going
it's
back
how
to
it's a
China,
product.
China is extremely efficient, right? China
China's
is doing
very inefficient.
capitalism very successfully, but I don't
The
think you would
China
want to
China
live
per
under
worker is
Chinese
extremely
rule,
inefficient.
right?
They have 1.5 billion people. They have 1.5 billion people. Their GDP is less than the United States, right? That means their workers are significantly less efficient than our workers. They have a lot less capital, and their average person is putting out a lot less product than we are. Even when you control for the fact that they have less capital than we do, their worker doesn't make as much as an American worker.
I'm not God.
Do you think that has something to do with the material conditions of China and the fact that they brought in foreign investment in technology and foreign IP as recently as like the 80s and 90s? Don't you think that that's like? Don't you think that that's a significant factor?
I mean, if you're talking about like bringing
It's
in
like when Destiny
FDI,
gets
if
mad
you're
at
talking about
gun nuts for saying like, well, Salvador has a higher rate of gun violence than the U.S. It's like, yeah.
no, so if you want to talk about like FDI and all that things, right? So that we control for the amount of capital people have, right? We control for the amount of human capital they have as well, right? So if they have more people, obviously they're going to be less efficient, right? Unless they have a equivalent amount of machines to work with, right? So so even when you control for the fact that they're working with less equipment, less capital, as you would say, even if they haven't brought in the amount, they're still less efficient than us. And then if you're talking about bringing in IP, are you talking about the thefts of hundreds of billions of dollars of American and Western IP in general, where
Is
they're
it
literally
theft
carbon
if
copying
the
your factories?
American corporations like openly admitted that they could steal their IP as long as they were able to exploit their deregulated labor force?
I'm not
I
God.
don't think they
This
agreed
is
to it
why-
initially.
Then
And
why
they
do they
kind of
keep
passively agreed to
using
it.
Chinese labor instead of like moving their
No,
factories back to the United
they are.
States and
They're
using
moving
United
to
States labor? It seems like that would be
they're moving
a
to
more
Vietnam and
efficient or a
Southeast
more
Asia.
productive way of doing things, right? If they had a significant problem with IP theft. If owners of
I
capital
mean,
had
yeah,
a
they are, and they're
genuinely
moving it.
if owners of capital had like a serious theft of IP issue, they would probably move their factories over to a
like,
country where
say
they
to,
can
like, to
exploit.
like Vietnam and the other places around Southeast Asia that aren't China. And
Well, they're
that's the kind
moving
of
into
flow that we are
Vietnam and
seeing.
other places that aren't Southeast China because like labor conditions have improved
Do you
in
think they give a
China,
fuck?
not because
Do
of IP theft. I mean, they can claim that it's
No,
because of IP theft, but it seems kind of weird to utilize the Chinese labor force for the past 40 years or past 30 years and then only start moving to Vietnam, just like China is literally exploiting Vietnamese labor now. Only start moving into Vietnam once China
you mean,
becomes
like,
more wealthy.
once their labor. Don't think that necessarily has to do with China becoming more wealthy, right? It's just because the average
Wages have
Chinese
gone
labor
up in
demand is going up.
China at
Yeah, sure.
faster rates
From
than the United States.
yeah, thanks to trade. Yeah, thanks to trade from the United States, right?
Do you mean trade? Like, I guess if you mean like because the United States utilized like China's labor and brought in a significant amount of foreign capital to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
country,
So generally,
and
so
the
generally,
Chinese labor force.
so
The reason why their wages increase is because they control it.
no, the reason why their wages increased is because they got more capital, so they're able to make more per person because of the FDI that has come in. That has nothing to do. That has nothing to do with the fact that they're controlling the whatever. There's more capital, so their workers are now able to make more, so they can charge a higher wage. Now it's more efficient for these companies to go to the places that don't have capital and trade with them instead.
Yeah, they're now moving on to other places that they can
And
exploit.
then wait, hold on. One more. So then, if you even look at the average Chinese worker, right? Do you think the average Chinese worker controls fucking anything? No, it's all the Communist Party. If you're not in the Communist Party, you get nothing. Your social credit score, if it's not over a certain number, you're not getting a house. You're not getting a job. You're fucked.
It's kind of weird because you're agreeing with everything I said. I said that this is a
Yeah,
very effective way of running capitalism. It's efficient
Oh,
in
yeah.
regards to, I mean, it's efficient in every way. Like it's just
Yeah,
more competitive.
except for in the redistributive parts to the workers, right? So it's very much almost like capitalism one again, right? Where you have the unchecked capital owners, in this case the CCCP, running everything, right? You don't have your regulatory framework to unscrew things, right? To make sure that the average Chinese worker is getting their fair share of that trade pie.
I'm confused by like it seems like we're not disagreeing on anything, but you're saying that like the Communist Party being like a one, but like the Chinese. Sorry, I got sidetracked. Sorry. You said like the fact that it's a one party system is a problem, right? That's what you're saying. Is that what it is? Am I understanding your point correctly?
No, I'm saying that you have the same thing that in China as you did in capitalism one now, where you have vertically and horizontally integrated companies, and you have capital owners. In this case, the CCCP instead of actual capitalists in charge of everything. So you still have the major problems with the first capitalism that they're not addressing. Right? They're not doing anything through the government to address any of the wrongs, to address any of the pollution, or any of the other problems that we have with capitalism.
Okay. I mean, I don't think the problem with the Chinese economy is that they're not putting enough like regulatory checks. I just don't like. You
You don't
lost
think
me.
that'd be generally. So you don't think it'd generally be better for China to make all that trade with America so they can have more money per person? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
My main problem. All right, let me just explain this. My main problem is, first of all, China not addressing pollution is I hate to say this, but China not addressing pollution is I would say correct if you were in the year, I don't know, 1998, but that's not true anymore because it got to a point where like the government had to do something about it. But that's a consequence of industrialization and a consequence of like the way that they grew and how quickly they grew. But if we're talking about, I mean, if we're talking about the issues that I have with China, it stems from literally the things that you mentioned, which is a concentration of wealth and power at the top in the hands of the few.
Oh, sure, but here's the
like
thing, though.
that's an
So
issue that I
capitalism
think we
provided.
have with capitalism, and that's certainly an issue that we've had
Why
with.
can't that's not? So
That's
capitalism isn't
certainly an
purely
issue that we
economic.
have with the Communist Party or with China, with the way that China is run as well.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but the problem is, like you said, is that you have the massive distribution of capital, in this case, to the people in charge in the Communist Party, right? It's not a fair playing field in China. If you look at what China's done, it's been incredible. What they've done through capitalism was great. They got a shit ton of money, but the problem that they're having is it's not actually getting down to the people who need it. And
What do you mean? Can you describe that a little bit? Are you saying that there's too much wealth hoarding at the top in China? Because if that's the case, I agree. If you're saying that China is not doing enough to build out their like rural areas or their cities, then I disagree with you on that end. I think
well,
that
I mean, they're just building fake cities for GDP points, but that's like a separate issue entirely.
okay.
But no,
I
so
just what I don't understand is like, do you think China is communist right now?
no, definitely not. They're definitely state capitalist totalitarians.
They're state capitalist totalitarians. Okay. We don't disagree on that talking point. So why are you using China as a reason as to why like socialism is not working? Maybe I'm just not understanding it.
So, all right, so if you look at what China did until 1979, right? That's when they were fully socialist, like full-on Maoist. That's when they killed the birds. They did all those bad things, right? So if you look at when they switched their economy from a fully state-planned economy to state capitalist, and you look at the insane amount of growth that they have, that's insane. Everyone in China, on average, would be significantly better off under the capitalist system than their socialist system.
But you just admitted that but you literally just admitted that the only difference between the way that the Chinese economy was run then versus now is that there is foreign investment that was allowed into the country. And
it's more than that. The small enterprises are allowed to run, and for the most part, the big enterprises are allowed to run.
You just literally just said China is state capitalist and totalitarian. Are you now changing it? Are you now changing your opinion?
So totalitarian and state capitalist are two different things. State capitalist describes the economic system. So
Okay.
what that means is the government owns all the businesses, but they let the businesses run like fucking businesses. And if things fuck up at the top, well then or they don't like the CEO, well then he gets sent off to the camp. That has nothing to do with saying you need to make 400,000 cars, even if no one wants any fucking cars.
Okay. What I'm confused by is it seems like on the one hand you're saying you hate centrally planned capitalism and it's like state capitalism, but on the other hand you're also saying that it was very successful.
So if you're
either you're switching through your terminology depending on what your point of view is, or I guess I'm not smart enough to understand what you're saying.
So we have socialism is China before 1979, right?
Okay.
Then we have state capitalism.
What are the significant differences between pre-1979 China outside of like foreign investment? I'm talking about like controlling. I'm talking about controlling our economy. Are you saying like, are you a dengist? Is that what it is? Like that's the difference?
No, there's Chinese economic. There's massive economic reform in the 70s and 80s. So there's a decollectivization of agriculture. There's opening up the country to FDI. There's permission for entrepreneurs to start businesses.
But you just said that. But you just said that the state still like owns almost all of this.
They own the businesses and they put people on the boards of all these businesses. And if people don't like that. And if the people don't like that, like let's say I'm the CEO of Ford, China owns Ford. If I say something like I don't like the CCCP, they'll take me out and they'll put someone else in. The state still owns the business, even if I'm allowed to run it and profit off of it.
Okay.
And then we have a third thing, which is just unfettered capitalism, right? Which is what we have in America.
So wait, hold on. Okay. So you said. This is sorry, you were describing like post 1970s China and the decentralization of the economy, right? But
yes.
then but then it
Excuse me.
centralizes
I'm
once
sorry.
again,
I'm out of
or
control. I
they don't
apologize for
leave
that.
their element of control. There are still
So
people
they got rid of their
there are
price
still people
controls.
there are still people
So
who are loyal to the party or the one party or loyal to the
yes,
current power
but
structure
but
that are running
the
these companies in the way that not in the way that a private enterprise would, but in a way that like the
it's more
Chinese
like a
government
GSE.
wants. So it's
It runs more
functionally
like
the
a
exact
GSE.
same.
No, it's entirely different because there's no price controls, there's no protectionist policies, and there's no production mandates.
Okay, why would there be okay, but why would there be price controls if the state is already completely controlling the CEO and the board of executives and even the labor force through the unions?
What do you mean? Why would there be? It's really dumb to have them, but they put them in anyways, and that's what one of the big problems of the central planning is because you can't appropriately set prices on goods. And so when you get rid of that, like they did in the 70s and 80s, you saw massive growth in the Chinese economy from state capitalism, from state socialism. Now, if
Okay,
you compare,
hold on.
okay,
Oh. I just don't think that the difference that you're mentioning is as significant as you think it is, or like
I
it
mean, I
doesn't make
can,
sense.
I mean,
Especially
if you'd like,
considering that it's still controlled, central, like it's still centralized planning, like almost in every step of the way. But on the one
eh,
hand, like you admit that, like on the one hand you admit that, but on the other hand you're saying that like
I guess here,
subsidies would not be
let me try
considered
to be,
subsidies would
let me try
not
to
be
be.
considered like centralized planning
I
in a
think we're having
meaningful way.
I think we're having a kind of a fundamental like definitional mismatch. So I guess I'll try to clarify things a little bit more. So we China before 1970 was fully state planned. So
Mm-hmm.
that being said, if we have a car manufacturer, the government says you're making 400 cars and they're going to cost $300.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, sure. So then, China after the 1970s, they still own the producer, but the producer sets prices in accordance with the market, right? But if they're doing
Okay.
things or they're trading with people that the government doesn't want to, then the government gets stops them, tells them no, or they just like replace the board or whatever, right? So there's still some state exercise power over these companies, but it's not as free as it is like full on free capitalism, quote unquote, as it is in the United States, right? Where anyone can start a car factory and they're not responsible to the central governing party. Is that more clear? Like
Um,
the delineation
yes,
between the
but I'm
different.
saying that like functionally the government still like the government allows the market to um I guess the government somewhat allows the market to set rates, but ultimately the significant difference, and I'm mentioning this to you, between the
Sure.
two structures is that one has foreign capital and the other doesn't. And having
I mean,
having
access
foreign
to foreign
capital is a
capital, sure, is
significant
certainly
factor in
important, but
growth, not necessarily
but you know what's
not
really
necessarily
great?
implementing market structures. Now, if you were to say that
You know
foreign
what's
capital
great
could
is
only come in because they decided to work off of work away from centralized planning, and instead,
no, I think we have great econometric tools that we can account for the flow of foreign direct capital in and show that it's demonstrably the policies that have a positive effect in addition to the positive effect foreign direct capital has.
okay, are you my opinion is, and you can tell me if I'm incorrect here. My opinion is foreign capital would have never come in without
Oh,
a
sure.
quote unquote implementation of free market principles.
Not necessarily free market principles. I mean, we still operate in a lot of countries that definitely aren't free markets.
Okay, or okay,
I mean,
wait.
and again, we
So
still
wait. What
have.
do you mean? So you just said
So
before, you said that it was like the reason why it was successful, and now you're saying like this is
so
what
part
I'm
of the
confused
success.
by.
You're
On the
right.
one hand, you're saying
There
these
is
are on the one hand you're saying that these are like market principles that they implemented,
so
which allowed China to grow and prosper. I'm saying that no, it's actually foreign capital, and foreign capital would have never
yeah,
come in
right. And so
without
we have
the
so
supposed
what
quote unquote implementations
so So
of
the foreign direct capital was allowed starting in the 1970s, right? And then that continued on through the 80s and 90s when they implemented later reforms, right? So we have great econometric tools that says we can calculate how much of the growth was due to foreign direct investment, how much is due to these policy changes. And when you look at those econometric models, you can see that yes, you're right. Foreign direct investment is a very important growth factor. And so when you do have that, that does cause a boom in the economy. But you also have additional increases from switching over from state socialism to state capitalism.
okay. Can you so again, this there's a fundamental misunderstanding that you established, or that I guess we didn't get to talk about in the beginning of this conversation, where I mentioned that, once again, like, your definition of I guess state socialism and state capitalism is, it keeps switching, because, like, you don't have to have you don't even have to have centralized planning to implement socialism. I'm talking about it from the point of view of a concentration of wealth and a concentration of power. Whereas this didn't happen in China, and it still hasn't happened in China. Does that make sense?
What concentration of wealth and what concentration of power hasn't
wealth is
happened in
not
China?
wealth and power is not spread back to the people. Like
Correct.
the unions, as you also admitted, are just basically bullshit. It's a way to control the labor force,
I don't think I've
rather
ever
than
talked
like
about
actually
unions,
advocate
but-
for, like, it's kind of like Vietnam in that sense. I think you and I would agree on that, right?
I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I would agree that there's not a lot of union power in Vietnam or China.
And there's a lot of
I
unions,
don't
but
think I've
it's
talked
not
about that.
necessarily powerful because it's not operating in the interest of the workers. It's operating in the interest of the workers. It's operating in the communist. We're gonna be. It hasn't started yet, I don't think. Or wait, I got the green light. All right, we're back. Oh, thank God. Okay, what was the last thing you said?
Okay, so we were talking about capitalism versus socialism, right? And the reason why I argue for capitalism is because it's going to get us more money that we can spread around to everybody else. So yes, I agree that there's huge problems with inequality under capitalism, but I think the way to address that is through government regulation. It's not by axing your economic system that's making you more than any other system.
Okay. All right, no, we're still going. Hold on. So we're gonna address the distribution problem that is inherent to capitalism
It's not
by
inherent to capitalism.
more government. What?
It's not inherent to capitalism. Look what they did in
How is
Venezuela.
that not inherent to capitalism when you
It's
admitted that,
inherent
like,
to- it's
capitalism
inherent to any
1.0 and
power
capitalism
structure. I
2.0
agree that
both
it
ran
happens
into the
in
same
capitalism.
problems? Wait, hold
Oh,
on.
sure.
How is that
I
not
agree.
how is that not an issue when capitalism 1.0 and capitalism 2.0 and potentially capitalism 3.0
It's inherent. It's
is
not inherent to capitalism. It's inherent to human nature itself. Whenever there's wealth or power, someone's going to grab it. If you look at what happened with these communist reforms, what happened? You had a totalitarian government go on top and grab the resources from anyone else. It has nothing to do with the economic
rather than a
system that you're in.
totalitarian group of oligarchs who are, plutocrats who are functionally doing the exact same thing.
Yes,
but,
I know.
But
I
then
agree.
but instead of that, there's like
But they're doing it on a
there's
shittier
an
economy, so
essence
there's
of
not
freedom.
enough money.
What?
No, they're doing it with just a worse economy, so there's less money to grab.
Also,
I think that no matter what,
human nature is not an argument that I don't think the dggers would let you get away with. I mean, I'm being as charitable as possible here, but like, are you just saying that, like, greed is a fundamental part of human nature and just, like, we can't escape it?
I think that there will always be people who will always take the shortcut given to them. I don't think every person is inherently greedy, and I don't think every person is inherently evil. I think in general, you'll find that the people who are inherently greedy or want power will try to go to the top and will try to take it from others. Your economic system is separate entirely from these other issues that you're trying to address. I think it's generally better that there's more money to split between everybody than there is to make sure that it's inherently equitable from the very beginning, right? And run a smaller economy with less money for everybody.
So if greed is inherent and that people are naturally going to gravitate towards positions of power regardless of like economic distribution, one, why did this not happen in prehistory, like prehistoric
They
societies?
did.
The
guy with the biggest stick went and beat somebody.
And two, yeah, well, that was the point I was going to make. And two, why aren't we literally murdering people? When someone says something terrible about fish, I don't go out and murder them. Obviously, it's still like there are certain elements of human nature, our violent tendency, for example, that we've been able to get away from and regulate. It almost seems like human nature is not
so
a
you're saying
human
that you have
nature
no
is not a
problems with
good
school shootings?
reason to human nature is not a good way to mention why like a capitalist distribution of resources and wealth is not like a good way to defend capitalism.
I'm not trying to defend capitalism in terms of it's going to stop bad people.
You
I'm defending
wait. So what
capitalism in
were you
terms that
doing
it'll.
earlier when you
I was
said
saying that
greed is inherent to
in every system, there will always be someone who tries to exploit their position of power to gain wealth over someone else. It's not going to be everybody, and it probably won't be most people. We generally live in a pretty good society, but there will always be somebody who wants to take things away from the less fortunate than them.
Okay. Don't you think a good way to combat that would be better methods of remuneration and also a better distribution of wealth and resources?
Yes, I would totally agree, but I don't think
Okay.
the way to do that is through changing an economy that's been the proven most effective one in the world. I think the way to do that is through regulation. Like you said, we do need some redistribution. We don't need subsidies for a lot
So
of
why
our
does it keep
corporations
failing though?
because we're humans. We're not perfect, right? If you had the perfect system, I would gladly switch over to that if you could show that to me. But what I'm saying is
Isn't
right
that
now,
also another? Isn't that also literally yet another fallacy?
that there's nothing perfect. If you can show me something better, I'd gladly switch to it. But empirically,
Well,
economics.
when I was mentioning a move towards social democracies and nationalization, you cut me off right there, and we started talking about China. But
Well, I wanted
but
to
the
talk
point
about
out
resource
it's
extracting
well, one,
economies.
that is a nirvana fallacy, but two,
Sure.
I was giving you like actual examples of how we could potentially implement it, judging by things that we've done thus far, and then you, I don't know, you just like went off on China. So I'm confused where that leaves us off, considering that I'm not
I
like
wanted to talk
defending
about.
China.
Well, first, I wanted to talk about extraction economies and how, in general, they perform significantly worse than any economy in general. So, right, if you look at United States, if you look at Britain, they're especially Britain. Britain's probably the best example. They're very, very natural resource poor, right? But they were able to they're able to grow essentially the most, right? Because
How
they're
were they
not
able to
reliant
do
on the
that?
natural. How are they able to do that? Projection of power through
Oh
their
shit!
navy,
Wait, hold
trade,
on.
and
I might be
mercantilism.
effing again. Fuck! I see red on the OBS. All right, nope, we're back. All right, keep
Okay.
going.
And rampant unchecked capitalism, right? They went out, they traded, they did horribly exploitative things.
Slavery, imperialism,
Oh yeah, very bad.
colonialism.
Yeah, very fucking bad, right? But
Uh-huh. Not great.
yeah, not great. But rampant capitalism, rampant growth, right? If you look at a lot of countries without oil resources, if you look at most of the Middle East, if you look at a lot of the Western African countries, if you look at the diamond exporting countries like Congo, South Africa, Zimbabwe,
I'm
they're all
not
natural
God.
resource extracting economies, and they perform worse than other ones where they're not reliant on rent-seeking behavior.
Okay. Wait, I'm confused. Are you saying that if you have natural resources, you don't have
You're
to do colonialism? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
I'm saying that natural resource economies perform significantly worse than economies that don't engage in rent-seeking behavior, or that don't have to.
Yeah. Don't you think that has something to do with the fact that
It
they were
has to do with
forced?
a
I
lack
mean,
of income.
they were better equipped at might is right. Like, isn't this the argument that we're having
No,
now? Is just
because
like
no,
might is
because
right?
so you're saying no. This isn't the argument they're having. The argument that we're having is that rent-seeking behavior isn't profitable in the long term. And when you rely on resource extraction, you don't diversify your economy. You don't get into services and other things that will end up in a boon for your economy.
Okay. I'm just like what I'm genuinely confused by here is I feel
Sure.
like you're like I feel like you're jumping over a couple steps here
Sure.
when you talk about like when you talk about industrialization in Britain and you talk about the curse of like countries that
I'm not
have
talking about industrialization in Britain
like
specifically. I'm talking about in general the economic policies.
you're falsely equating. I'm giving you examples of like nationalization that have worked, right? Like that
So
that doesn't mean that like nationalization that has worked and nationalization that, of extraction industries that hasn't worked. And whenever there is like foreign interference, and that's precisely what you're referencing, or that's precisely what you literally referenced in regards to like African nations, for example,
they
that you
self-cannibalize
incorrectly
pretty
mentioned is like failing because they're like
It's failing due to corruption. If you look at all these rent-seeking economies, the
okay,
rate of
but
corruption is
capitalism
insane
is
compared
corrupt
to
as
American
well.
ones.
It just depends on
Oh,
what you
sure,
mean by
exactly. So we agree that it's not inherent to capitalism that there's greedy and rent-seeking behavior that we want to avoid.
okay. Like I'm not against regulation though. Like
I'm not talking
I'm
about
not against
regulation
like
at this point. I'm talking about resource extraction and how that leads to corruption and how that leads to reduced economic output and how that's a bad outcome.
okay, but you can't say that when there are successful examples of exactly what I'm seeking to implement.
So
In the
you want
short
to use
term,
these Norwegian countries as examples of
especially
things
the
that have
reason why I use
nationalized the
Norway
extraction
as a
industry, right?
perfect example is because, or I guess you could utilize Saudi Arabia. I fucking hate because it doesn't.
Well,
It's
Saudi Arabia is a whole other can of worms. I don't
yeah,
think you wanna go there.
it's a fucking theocratic monarchy. Obviously, that's not a system that is effective both politically
oh
or
no,
even
that's definitely
economically
not true.
because
The most
because of their over reliance on extraction as well. Over reliance on fossil fuels is a significant problem in Venezuela as well.
So specifically in Norway, what industries did they nationalize? I don't know off the top of my head. Can you
It's just fossil fuels, like all
fossil
manner
fuels?
of yeah, all manner of fossil fuels. I think that's. I mean,
So is that like
even their healthcare is not nationalized.
so if you look at
I
their
mean,
just
it's
like generally their
socialized, but it's
GDP,
not. It's just oil.
so their GDP of Norway is 525
Oh, I guess their
3.1
forestry is as well. Is that
Right.
true? I didn't know that.
I think that sounds right. Here, let me just look up the percentage of their economy of these two industries. So Norway oil percent of GDP, and then you said forestry as well. So oil
I
rent
said
is 3 point.
I said I didn't. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I'm looking that up right now. I mean, if you look at their oil, that's 3.8% of GDP. If you look at the forestry industry, right, that is 30 or no, that's a percent of the forested area. I mean, Norway forest rents percent of GDP. It is 0.04467%. So you're looking at maybe 5% of their industry is nationalized, right? I think what would be interesting would be to go back and then look at the returns from their foresting and the returns from their oil production under private versus public ownership. I haven't or I haven't pulled the data. I can't look at that. But
Wait,
if you're using Norway
can
as
I just ask you something?
Sure.
Do you like what do you think I'm advocating for?
Uh,
Do you think I'm
you're
do you
advocating-
think I'm advocating for like changing the American economy in such a fundamental way that we only we nationalize our extraction industries and then that's it? Like that's the only thing we produce all of a sudden?
No. So I want to use this as an example to show you why Norway is not a great example to use compared to the other more extremely rent-seeking economies that rely on natural resource extraction. If you look at Norway, less than 5% of their GDP has been nationalized, right? Which is a very, very small percent, and so you don't really see any.
Wait,
corruption
where are
there.
you? Where is this? Where are you getting the number from?
Trading
I thought it was
economics.com.
higher, but
So I just looked at.
no, it says 22%.
Where can you link me wherever
Yeah.
you're saying for percent from nationalization?
I'm looking at it right now. Hold on. Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember it being higher than that. Okay, so where is it?
I mean, I just looked at the two industries you said. I don't know the Norway's off the top of my head.
Norway's global top 5 exporter of crude oil. The oil and gas sector constitutes around 22% of Norwegian GDP and 67% of all Norwegian exports.
So you have to remember, OGS isn't necessarily just the oil itself, right? That's the whole service industry that it revolves around. That I don't believe that's nationalized. I think they only own the oil reserves themselves, and they contract private companies to extract it and pay them.
Okay.
I'm fairly certain. So there's a significant difference, right?
Yeah. Okay. So, but like.
So they're still relying on private companies to extract, right? So that's a significantly smaller portion of their GDP that's actually derived from these.
Wait.
Right.
Are you saying that the people that work in? Are you saying that the people that work for the Norwegian oil company are not they would have to be considered a part of the private sector? Is that what you're saying? Despite the fact that they're working for the literal government? What? I feel like you're not.
Does that? Do they? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. So are you saying that these companies are owned, or is it physically only the oil that they've nationalized, and then they're having these private companies?
No, they're
then
run by
pay
they're run by the government too. I mean, there might be well, there are elements that are privatized 100%, but it is run by the government.
Sure. Okay.
Wait, but if you don't know that, then why are you making?
No, that's why I was asking, right? Because from the quick numbers
But
that I saw,
but weren't
I
you
thought
about
there
to
was a
launch
very
off
small
of a
percentage
point
of
if I didn't push back on that? Like you
Oh,
were literally about to launch off a point and say, look, no,
yeah,
actually, it's
so the
actually
point is-
5% because the rest of it, the people that work inside of Statoil or the people that work inside of this nationalized extraction industry is are
No, so I
technically
was gonna
still
say that
working in the private industry, and that wouldn't be
no. So the
that
point that I
wouldn't
was
be a
trying to launch
factor.
off
That wouldn't be a factor that
it
works.
has nothing to do with Norway. It has to do with all the rest of the countries that have a significant portion of their GDP coming from resource extraction, right? Because you essentially get an incentive for the government to not do anything besides that resource extraction, and then you get corruption and spread throughout the governments, right? And so, because Norway, I thought it was a lot less. Maybe it's not. But
It's just like, why is it that every single time I talk to like you're a social democrat, aren't you? Isn't that what you said? You want regulatory? Are you not?
no,
Are you a
absolutely.
neoliberal? Is that what it is?
I'm definitely not neoliberal.
Okay, what are you? I don't know what you are, but,
I'm-
but it doesn't matter. It like literally doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I thought you
No, it
were a
doesn't.
social democrat, and maybe I was mistaken. But
No.
like from what you said, as far as like implementing regulations on the market, it seems like it's I just assumed that you were a social democrat. Maybe you're not. But why is it that every time I talk to someone like this, they like talk about East Germany versus West Germany and like go back to like
because-
very obvious like
because those
communism
are
memes.
so
Then they
as,
talk about China, and then on top of that, then they talk about China, and then they turn around and
So as economists,
and then they
as
start
economists,
and then
we
they start
can't just,
making
like-
fun of like they start criticizing Norway and like other social democracies that I
I'm not
originally
criticizing
assumed
Norway.
were like the main goal that they wanted to have, which is
So because that's
an
essentially
economy
where the
that's
conversation's
capitalist
taken us.
that
So
has
what we have-
that has regulations.
So as economists, you can't go to a government and say you need to implement capitalism and now you're totalitarian, right? You have to look at times where you have drastic differences between people that are as close as possible, right? We think it would be a bad comparison if we took the United States and compared it to like Zimbabwe or something, right? To say capitalism good, totalitarianism bad, right? So what you want to do is you try to find countries that are the closest.
Wait,
So
capitalism is the opposite of totalitarianism in this? What?
no,
what?
no,
Like
no,
what?
no, no. I'm using that as a totally shit example of something that you should absolutely not do because it makes no fucking sense. You're comparing two things that aren't related, and you're comparing two countries that have nothing at all similar to each other.
Wait.
We can agree that it would be a very shit comparison to make,
Wait,
right?
what else? What else are? This is literally what we've been doing the entire time. Like,
No, because we have controls for the other things. So if we look at these examples, these are the best examples that we can find throughout history.
so we
because
shouldn't
can't-
we shouldn't have never even talked about China to begin with. Then, like, I guess, like, what do you mean?
No,
Why
no,
are
China-
your
China's a
comparisons
good- no.
acceptable? But when I tell you, like, here is a successful way to implement this in the short term without even moving beyond that, without moving past the short term, you're like, oh well, these countries are not. We can't compare
Because,
these two countries. It has to be
we
literally an
can't-
identical country for us to be able to
it's
compare
not.
it.
It's not literally an identical country, but nearly identical countries will give us the best comparisons. That's why you look at East versus West Germany, because at the end of the war, both of them were in very similar conditions, and then they reunified after the 1990s. And you look at the growth from East and West Germany, you can say, all right, well, if we control for all the other economic factors that happened, if we control for the fact that the Soviet Union came in and took a lot of East German scientists out, if we account for the fact that Russia came and took away a lot of capital to take back to Russia
Dude,
itself.
didn't you literally just say that like we can't compare countries? And
But
then
we-
now
we-
you're
we-
comparing
we
East and
cannot-
West
all right,
Germany
so-
by saying that like as though West Germany did not get significant economic help from all
right,
of
and
the
so-
other
so those are-
capital owning nations that
Sure,
did
there
not
are
take
things that we
they did
can
not take
control.
the same fucking kinds of hits that Russia did.
Oh, they didn't. They did not. And so, but the thing is, you can try to account for those by choosing examples that are as close together as possible. And when you can't, you can put in other compounding factors into your study. And then you can come up with a good estimation, right? And so, if you look at East versus West Germany,
So
if
you're
you look
saying
at
that we're
rents and
no
functionals-
longer allowed to use an example of like
So-
something
so
that is like the
disingenuous
closest
to use-
to market socialism that we currently have implemented in place without any sort of additional outside influences that have been able to
I think you have
that
to
have been
look
able to
beyond
like
just-
run.
You have to look beyond just one specific example, because we can always pull, all right, the USSR or China is better than this really bad country, or the United States is always better than this other country when you're using one specific example. What you do is you take as many countries as you can who fit into those categories, and then you say, what are the general effects of this policy? What are the general effects of this policy? Here are the assumptions we've made. So sure, we can't control for everything, but for the most part, we found that generally capitalism makes more money than socialist countries. State capitalism is worse than capitalism, but it's slightly better than socialism.
State capitalism is slightly better than socialism. Hello?
Yes.
Is that's what you're saying?
Yes, I would say state capitalism is a step above socialism in terms of
But socialism, but like the socialism examples that you're using are literally state capitalism. In the way that you admitted that China is state capitalist, you would admit that like the USSR would be state capitalist as well, right? Because there's
no, we're definitely a mixed economy. We're no longer a pure capitalist nation anymore.
Wait. Are you saying that the United States? No, I'm talking about USSR. I'm not saying USA.
USSR is state capitalism. United States can be argued to be a mixed economy as well, because we have GSEs and other entities that are involved, right? We're mixed.
Why are you, dude? I wanna like pin down, like your opinion, but it's impossible to understand where you're coming from, because you keep changing your definitions whenever, like, depending on what the talking point is. Either I'm like too stupid to understand what you're saying, and that could be the case. I'm not a very intelligent person, or you keep changing, or you literally keep changing the definitions of what constitutes as state capitalism and what's better than socialism. So if the USSR is state capitalism, what is socialism?
Socialism is fully planned economies with no prices. So that's saying you make 300 cars, you make 200 chickens, you make 100 whatever.
Okay, good. Okay, well then that's great, because you don't have to have a fully planned economy to be socialist. So
that's not economic socialism. It's defined as
because you've made up your terms. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, you can't just come in here and be like, well, the bad kind of socialism is the kind of socialism I want to talk about, but the good kind of socialism is the good kind of capitalism is the definition that I think it fits. So like, if we're working on your terms, and I'm trying to understand, I'm trying to understand what your terms are, but you keep changing them around. Like you in this conversation, and I'm not trying to like gish gallop you or anything like that. I'm like literally like, I'm just trying to genuinely comprehend what you're trying to say. But like, you started off by saying there is economic socialism and political socialism. I asked you what political socialism is. You didn't really have an answer for that. You just said like,
I don't
one
really
is fully centralized planning. Wait, you don't really know?
So political socialism is more or less like what the best good for the most people. I'm not exactly sure. I don't do a lot of political science and things like that, right? I know in general that
so
for
why
socialism,
did you make up this terminology then? Are you saying
it's
like
not? There's a split
Marxism?
between the way. There's a split between terminology use, which is definitional in economics, and kind of what you get with other people in socialists, where generally they want the state to own a lot of things, maybe not everything. They want some form of mixed economy. You generally want lots of social welfare nets, and they use that as socialism. Just because you have a state-planned economy doesn't necessarily mean you have social welfare nets. That has nothing to do with your economic system.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. So let's dial this back for a second. But you understand that there is a concept such as market socialism that exists, right?
Sure, yes, and you're still running a capitalist economy under that.
Okay, so like it's not socialist then. Like market. No, because I want you to say the words. Economy. Market socialism is not socialism.
Market socialism is not economic socialism.
Like syndicalism is not going to be what the fuck is economic socialism? Like what are you saying?
We defined this at the beginning. When it's a fully state-planned economy.
Marxism in general is about how commodity production touches every aspect of our lives, and how currently the way that we produce commodities, including labor, the way that we produce commodities creates a concentration of wealth in the most simplest terms possible, and that like a better redistribution is an absolute necessity for us to bring about more democratic outcomes. Then what you're referencing doesn't matter.
Sure, but the underlying economy is very important. Is very, very important. And that's what I disagree with you with.
Wait, I'm literally wait. The underlying, what is very different in your disagreement? Can you say that again? I didn't hear.
A state planned economy versus a market economy is drastically different.
A state planned economy and a market economy is drastically different. Yes. I don't disagree with you, but you can't point to a single fully market planned economy. I mean, a fully market based economy, just like I can give you state planned economies, but they were inevitable failures.
The state of China through all the big reforms. You can look at the USSR with all their 5-year plans.
But like you literally earlier said that subsidies are not like
subsidies are irrelevant to the economic system.
You said that subsidies are not a way of affecting centralized control in regards to production. Like you said that is not one way that we can.
It's a way of influencing them. I don't necessarily agree with them.
Okay, well, yes, what does influencing mean?
So if you induce a subsidy by saying if you make a solar panel, we'll give you $1, right? What you do is you change the market price of the thing, and then you have the companies respond to that price change, right? So
yeah.
So, but they're not in any way coerced into changing their prices or producing more.
They're not. Oh, so you're saying that there's no price regulations?
Right. So I could say I'll give you $1 million.
But price regulations are good.
Price regulations are terrible.
Why? Okay, if price regulations were terrible, then why are we facing a significant crisis when it comes to pharmaceuticals, for example?
Because
in pharmaceutical pricing, explain to me how price. Because America is the only nation. America is the only nation. No. Don't start with Obamacare. Hold on.
No.
America is the only nation that does not implement any sort of price regulations in regards to medication, and we try to offset that by saying that we can have generic brands.
Listen. All right. So here's what happens. So under Obamacare, each insurance company is only allowed to take 10% of their profit of the insurance premiums paid in. And if they don't pay out at least 90%, they have to refund that to you. So what happens is, say they are spending $10 billion per year, right? And so then they are spend $10 billion so they can make $11 billion. Now they find a way to save $1.5 billion. Well, then if they do that, then they'll actually make less money. So by allowing the
why are you talking about like the insurance?
Because so if they allow prices to increase,
but I'm talking about price regulation. But I'm talking about price. I'm talking about price restrictions working successfully, and price regulations working successfully in every other country outside of the United States when it comes to pharmaceutical sales.
Yeah, and do you know where all the funding for all those drugs come from?
Oh, you're going to do the meme. We're going to do the Steven Crowder meme.
Do the meme.
Yeah, America, right? Yeah. Wrong. That's not correct.
Yeah, sure. If you look at the patents, I think it's like 50% is from America, about 40% from Europe, and 10%
well, turns out, hey, 40%, not bad. They got price restrictions so people don't die because they don't have fucking $50 to pay for $50 if they don't $50 short of insulin, so they don't fucking die, and they get to do 40% of the.
It's okay to produce 25% less patents despite having an economy that's 40% bigger?
Yes.
You think that's
yes, I do. I do. Also, what good are the fucking patents if people are literally dying because they can't pay for it? Also, when it comes to R&D funding, we still have at least 50% of that coming in from publicly funded think tanks and institutions. So
I agree that those influences.
So like, what are you talking
we should
about?
Probably do something about that. I'm saying that on average,
it seems like we literally as taxpayers. It seems like we literally as taxpayers fund medical research, and then we have to pay a fucking premium price on it, whereas the rest of the planet still operating by the profit motive. By the way, whenever the pharmaceutical corporations are selling drugs to the rest of the fucking planet,
because what happens
they're fine.
So what happens is it's the marginal cost to produce at that point, right? So once I develop a drug, it costs me 2 cents to sell that drug anywhere, right? So if I can sell it for 3 cents, well, I'm going to fucking sell it for 3 cents, right? But what happens is you get the sunk costs at the beginning. If they can't recover that with their sales at 3 cents, well, then they're not going to make it. And so because we still have enough pricing and whatever in America, you can fund that research and then still be profitable and then still sell it in the rest of the world. So what you're saying is it's okay to produce less economic research, or sorry, less medical research that's going to save more lives,
No,
just
I
because
think we
some
can
people.
still fund it, and we
Well,
have funded it, and we will continue to fund medical research and development without the profit motive. That's what I'm saying.
so I mean, if there isn't that profit motive, then why, when you look at the places where prices are capped versus not capped, why are we producing more per person and per dollar?
Wait, are you? I'm sorry.
So more research, more
Why are we?
output.
Why are we? Why are we producing? Why are we producing pharmaceutical research? Is it just because of profit? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think I'm not saying it's necessarily because of profit. I'm saying profit is a great motive to get people to do things. And I think when they're doing things that aren't right, then you should have some sort of government tax to either incentivize more research, like it is for pharmaceuticals and education and other things with good externalities. And you should take away the profit motive when it's bad things, when they're like burning coal and it's like ruining our environment, right? I think profit is the best motive to get people to make the most things, and then you can just adjust it on the fly with the government instead
Yeah,
of having full
but you
government
just
control.
mentioned that the adjustments that governments have made successfully are actually technically bad. So you're, in a
They're not.
sense, you're making a cyclical argument and you're
They're
weaseling your way
they're
out of a talking point. You keep
it's not a
saying
separate.
regulations, but when I mention regulations to you, you turn
So
around and
those
say,
are
"Well, those
so those
regulations
are
are bad.
specific.
That's why
So
America's producing more medicine."
price floors and price ceilings are the easiest way to understand in terms of a minimum wage, right? So you understand that the higher the minimum wage is, the less people have jobs, correct?
Wait. Hold on. Before we get into a totally separate conversation,
I'm
no,
trying
no,
to
no,
talk
no. Hold
about
on, hold on.
specific regulations of price floor and
What are
price
some
ceiling.
regulatory controls that you would implement to ensure that Americans have access to medication that isn't four
Right.
times higher than fucking Canada?
Okay, so the first thing that I would do is I would remove the profit incentive from insurance companies by removing the cap on the profit that they can make. So hypothetically, or right now, if an insurance company spends 10 billion, they're allowed to make $1 billion on top of that. If they can save $1 billion and only spend 9 billion, well, then they can only make $900 million in profit. So right now, their incentive is to let the medication prices balloon, so then they can say they're spending that money so they can make more money on top. So then right now, in a better system, say they saved $1 billion on the medication that they're spending, then they can pass on 500 billion or 500 million or like 800 million or 100 million onto the consumers and still make extra profit by cutting costs.
It seems like there's a better way to do that than to um than the way that you mentioned it, which would be to um remove the profit motive, especially when considering that these companies have never been incentivized to do what you say, and you would have to admit that, it, especially when you
Incentivize
concede
what?
that there is a need for regulations to begin with.
I don't see what regulations have to do with whether or not like what implementations of a specific regulation you want, right? Price floors and price ceilings are bad. Price incentives to produce are good. If that makes sense in terms of regulations I like and don't like and ways to affect the economy. I don't think arbitrarily setting price caps and price floors will have the impact you want on the economy. You get the impact you want by saying we'll spend
Are
more
you
money.
gonna move into like LASIK eye surgery after this? Is that the next step that you're gonna talk about? If I
No,
ask you, when has this ever been implemented in regards to like
no,
deregulating,
no.
or I mean,
I think that's a really dumb thing, and it's no, I don't agree with LASIK eye surgery and that stuff.
okay, what were you? What would you say? Like, what is there any proof to what you're mentioning?
Sure, I can find some stuff after this stream and link you over some healthcare
Okay, I would
economic
love to.
articles.
I would love to hear
Yeah, sure.
how, like, because everything I've seen thus far, is that
So I have one from the
if there
AER.
is,
The American Economic Review, they published an article in September of last year that said private insurance was more cost effective than the equivalent Medicare, right? For the Medicare versus the private option, it was cheaper and it provided more services
where is
to
where
the
wait
people
wait
taking it.
where are they comparing this?
So what they did, they got 36 they got all 50 states Medicare data, and then they got reporting information from a private company, from 3 different insurers, Humana. I don't remember the exact numbers. There was 36 states where they had the same amount of people that were enrolled in both private Medicare and in the public Medicare data set. It was about 60 million Americans across both Medicare and private Medicare that was studied over a single year. So
Yeah, it almost seems like the consistent factor in both of those instances is still like private insurance setting the prices. I mean through market
Well,
forces,
no,
of
no,
course.
but the government has a monopsony power, right? So you think that the government is such a big spender that they can choose choose the prices at the hospital, right? Well, there is less than 1% differential between the price that the government was able to negotiate and the price that the individual insurers were able to negotiate. When in aggregate, the government was about 3 times as large as the private insurers, and the private insurers themselves then separate out that pool.
Okay, the point I was trying to make ultimately was that even under Medicare, it's still a private insurance company that
No, but
is.
there's but no, under the Medicare, there is the government option, which is the through the whatever, I can't remember the department, but that was about 75% of the population that they studied, and about 25% was where they took the Medicare money and they went to their private insurance.
It almost feels like it would be really good if Medicare at the very least could negotiate pharmaceutical prices, right?
Yeah, and it
It
was
feels
almost
like
as
it
if
would be
the prices
much.
that they
It feels like
negotiate,
that feels like it would be much a
it
much
feels
more
like the
a
it
much
feels
more
like the
effective
prices.
way.
It feels like the prices they negotiated were within 1% of what the private industry was able to negotiate, even with a much smaller pool of people.
Wait, hold on. Oh fuck! Did I lose it? Oh, God damn it! I think I lost internet again. Hold on one second. God fucking damn it! I hate my fucking ISP so much. Holy fuck! It says that we're back, but I don't know. Fuck.
Are we back?
Yeah,
Like,
it's still red on my OBS, but I guess we're back. People are saying that it refreshed. Okay. You said that currently the government only gets to the government has only been able to like change pharmaceutical prices by 1%. Is that what you said?
no, I'm saying that the prices for overall medical service that the government was able to negotiate with essentially monopsony power is within 1% of the prices negotiated by the private insurance industry.
Okay, but that wait. First of all, what is that comparison to? The VA? Like
No,
where is the government?
that's compared to the Medicare people who opted into private insurance, and that controls for the healthiness levels between them, and it controls for income, and it
But the government
controls for
currently has
geography.
zero bargaining power in regards to like pricing.
So the 60 million people that they insure, they have no bargaining power in that market,
Wait, what
despite
the
the
fuck are you talking about in regards to bargaining power? I'm sorry to get upset, but there's no negotiation. There's no negotiation of drug prices in Medicare. You can't just fucking turn around and say, oh, well, Medicare is like utilizing the 60 million people in their market forces by bargaining for medicine prices. How the fuck are they bargaining if there's only one goddamn drug patent out there for like arthritis medication? There's no negotiation. There's no negotiative. There's no negotiation process. You're being insanely dishonest right now.
How are we being insanely dishonest?
Because you're substituting negotiations, which is what a government is supposed to do through price regulations or through the power of, like, again, bargaining back and forth with the pharmaceutical corporation when they're purchasing drugs for their entire coverage ahead of time. That's literally the fucking point of negotiations. You can't keep fucking changing the terminology. Negotiations are not a negotiation that I, as a rational actor in the marketplace, am engaging in with a pharmaceutical corporation that's setting the fucking prices.
The pharmaceutical corporation, these insurance companies have nothing to do with what the government prices paid. The government says we're going to pay X amount for these services, and those happen. And then you look at the price that these private insurances
There are laws in the books that ban the government from negotiating. The VA recently, only 2 years ago, got negotiating power when purchasing, because it's like nationalization. Like the VA is an example of nationalized medicine. Only 2 years ago they got the fucking power power to actually collectively bargain for medicinal prices. It's literally illegal to negotiate. You are fucking wrong, and you're lying. You're lying, or you're getting DGG talking points, and it's starting to fucking frustrate me, okay? You can't slip out of this by saying it's just the fucking semantics. I've lost too many fucking hair follicles.
let me link you the
Oh, you were
study.
just trolling. Ha ha ha, I know.
No, I'll link you the study that shows this. So I'm logging into my email right now.
We're talking, and if you're talking about medical services, that's entirely different than drugs. We're talking about pharmaceutical.
This is everything except for retirement care. So no old folks home. That's the only difference.
Don't you think it's a little disingenuous? Don't you think it's a little disingenuous to talk about medical services when we are specifically talking about regulatory checks on drug prices? Like when we're talking about how the United States, the main reason why the United States pays fucking upwards of 10 times more than any other country on the planet, and that is precisely because it's literally illegal to do so. It's literally illegal to fucking negotiate. And you very dishonestly just said we can do that.
Here is the article that is, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. That is the minimum wage article. That is the minimum wage article. Let me go through my logs. Anyways, but I'm going. Sorry.
I'm not God.
Here we go. It's called Healthcare Spending and Utilization in Public and Private Medicare. It's published in the AEJ Applied Economics Journal. The link is there. So you can go to the, that's the zip file. Fuck, I didn't want to send that one.
What are you,
that's
fucking
the
sending me
file.
malware, dude? What the fuck is this zip file?
That's the .data. So that will download all the data. You can recreate all their things. Remove just the .data at the end. Wait, and then it will go to it. So it's this. If you click the data set at the bottom, that's what that links to. I was copying things
healthcare
out of my
spending
log.
and utilization in public and private Medicare. Oh my god, I have to pee so bad. We compare healthcare spending in public and private Medicare using newly available claims data from Medicare Advantage insurers. Medicare Advantage insurer revenues are 30% higher than their healthcare spending. Adjusting for enrollee mix, healthcare spending per enrollee in Medicare Advantage is 9 to 30% lower than traditional Medicare. Depending on the way we define comparable enrollees, spending differences primarily reflect differences in healthcare utilization, with similar reductions for high value and low value care rather than healthcare prices. We present evidence. What?
If you want to just take like a quick break, I can just link or copy the important things out to you that I was talking about.
Just point to me. Just point to me how, like you can. The only part that I'm interested in this is how
on the bottom of page 4 it says this contrast between traditional Medicare and commercial insurance has been interpreted as reflecting the lower power incentives in the public sector relative to the private sector and constraining utilization and monopoly power in the public sector to constrain prices relative to what the private sector can achieve.
Okay. I want you to point me to whatever data set that shows you that Medicare allows for the government to negotiate, because earlier when I pushed you on that, you said you think 60 million people don't have negotiating power, and I said no, they don't.
So you're right. The government doesn't actually use the tools in its toolbox to do what it should for the people. So you're saying that the government has taken away the rights of these people to negotiate, and they're not allowing them to get the actual things that they need, whereas the private industry is allowing them to do that.
Wait, you literally just completely changed your argument to my side.
I did not change that at all.
Is this how we're doing it now? You literally, yeah. What would be the regulatory? Wow, right, that is insane, dude. I've been trying to act like you're a good faith actor thus far, but holy shit, like you just started arguing my argument.
So I'm trying to understand. Like, it's really hard when you're yelling, and again, like I'm in front
of all these people. Hold on. What would be the government, like, What would be the government using their power for?
So what if they were really able to exhibit this monopsony power? If they are supposed to be representing these 60 million people,
Okay.
they should.
How? What could they implement? What could they implement to do this? To change drug prices, to make sure the drug
They could
prices
just
stay
not buy
low.
the drugs at higher prices. They could put in laws, but that's generally they can just say arbitrarily we're not paying more than $10, but then no one's going to sell to them. It's very bad.
Why are
to
they
tell the
selling
private-
to? Why are they selling to fucking Germany then? Why are they selling to Australia?
Because it's-
Why are they
because it's-
selling to
because
other
it's still
countries?
net profitable for them at the moment, as long as the Americans are subsidizing the healthcare for the rest of the world.
Ah, that's also an incorrect argument because international patents are different than patents in America
Yes,
and North
so if we go
America.
to- so if
So
we go
you're
to
wrong.
India, they don't
So if
respect
that was the case, then every
Indian patents
corporation.
don't respect anything.
Wait,
Indian
can I
patents
just
don't
finish
respect
my point before you jump in and start saying Indians don't respect anything? What the fuck? No. If your point was correct, if that's literally how we subsidize people, if that's literally how we subsidize if that's literally how we subsidize drug production, then every company would have to have both domestic patents, and also international patents. That is never the
But
case.
Indian doesn't-
That is never the case. Most pharmaceutical corporations either have an international patent, excluding sometimes Japan, and then a domestic patent here in the United States and also in Canada. So why is that the case?
Why is that the case that there's multiple patents? Because
No, for
every
the same
country has
drug.
patents.
Why are there international
Because
patents and domestic patents for the same fucking
because we
drug?
don't have an
If your
international
argument
patent
is
body.
literally relying on the fact that America is subsidizing the rest of the world.
Because we don't have an international regulatory body that deals with patents. In every country you want to go in, you have to get your own trademarks, you have to get your own patents because we don't have some supranational government yet.
Okay, but it wouldn't. But then the same company would own it. Then, right? The same company would want to own it. The same company would
the same company
need to own it. The same company
don't.
would need to own the patent
can
at
be
the
way more
international level
profitable for
and
them.
also at the domestic level. Otherwise, it would not
it's
be
not.
profitable because
No,
only
no,
the
absolutely
American
not. No, you
pharmaceutical.
can license it. You can license it to other companies. Like, let's say I'm a small drug lab in the United States and I invent a drug, right? It's going to be expensive as fuck for me to go overseas and open up a new drug lab. You know what? It's going to be great for me to call up Merck and say, hey, I'll get it for $20 million. I'll let you license my brand new drug and you have all the facilities. You go ahead and produce it. I have no need to be in that country. I have no need to do anything fuck all in that country. I can just sell them the rights to that country. If you look at India, there are no drug patent rights whatsoever. Whenever a drug is made,
So
any
why are they
manufacturer in
selling?
India can go
So
ahead and
why
make
are they selling to India? Why are they selling to Australia? Do you think it's
So
the
one-
kindness of
so
their
one-
heart, out of the goodness of their heart, or do you think
No,
they can
absolutely. No,
actually
absolutely
sell at a much lower price?
They can because of the marginal cost of the product, because it's a sunk cost at the time when the drug is
Okay,
developed.
but that's the point, and that's why we need we need pricing regulation in America as well.
No, because then we're going to lose all the drug production that we're doing. And so the rest of the world is getting it because we're able to fund all this research. So if you took away the American funding and we're now at those prices, we're going to suppress the amount of patents to the level that we're seeing overseas, which is 25% less than in America. Which is bad, which is not something we want. We want the most drug patents, but we want the people who can't afford to pay for it to have the government say, all right, well, you can have this drug so you can't fucking die. But we want the profit motive to be there so those companies make all these new drugs.
By the way, can you describe to me what the Indian you keep specifying how like India doesn't India
sure.
doesn't
So
respect like
India-
American patents or something, but
No, India doesn't respect any patents on medication from any company. Any drug company in India is allowed to make it's almost every single major category of drug without any copyright issues.
okay. I might
wanna
be
take
wrong.
the
I always assumed that India did have patents, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm
But
willing to.
it's
admit that.
specifically only on the medications, and I think it's only certain categories. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head.
Okay, everybody shut
but,
the fuck up. Wait, sorry. Everybody shut the fuck up. We're going to do Chad Vice in a little bit, okay? Chill the fuck out. Like, we're going to do it. I get it. You guys are bored. You guys are annoyed. But I want to get to the bottom of this. Especially considering that, like, drug patents are
So, and again, it's only process patents that are valid, and not in India for pharmaceuticals, not
That's
specific
wait.
drugs.
What do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry. So you're saying that in
process
India
patents,
they don't give a fuck if like if Purdue decides that like there's actually an anal way to now give you OxyContin or whatever, then India's like, no, that doesn't matter.
No. The process is like literally the only way to make the oxycodone, right? As soon as they make oxycodone, anyone can make oxycodone. The only thing you
Okay,
can
no,
patent is the specific way you
that's
make
why I
oxycodone.
literally mentioned the additional. Like, what are the other kinds of patents?
They have all the normal patents, but it's specifically on Medicare. So they have, I'm sure, trademark, design, geographical indication, copyright, and property rights. I would assume. I'm pretty sure the only one that's gone is the one on the specific inventions, which in medicine is the medicine itself, and which is what you need to have a patent on because it's very, very easy to make. Once you discover and you do the very expensive testing on what a drug does, it costs pennies to make it, but you still have that cost to recoup.
Okay.
And so if you're taking away the ability to recoup the cost of doing all that investments, it's like saying like
Do you know how companies traditionally recoup the ways I mean, do you know how some companies consistently try to ensure that they maintain a patent, or
oh yes, yeah, and I agree it's
how
wrong.
they
I
make sure
agree.
that they maximize their
Oh,
profits
lobbying.
off of a specific patent?
Lobbying and extension of the drugs through changing the formulation of how
Okay.
it's delivered. And then you also get, depending on how the drug's formulated, you might get slight changes in some of the side chains
So
so
yeah,
that the active effect remains the same. But yeah, again, so I think there's a lot of abuse
that's
that's
bad
happening
and
right
needs to
now.
be regulated. You agree with that, right?
Oh, sure, but yeah, but I would say
Okay.
that putting
Wait, what was the last point you were gonna make? Hello?
price break.
Oh
Hello,
fuck.
can you hear me? Did you break
Yeah,
again?
I can hear you. No. Okay.
You want to take like a 5 minute break so you can go to the bathroom? I'm gonna grab some water. My mouth's getting real dry. We'll be
Okay.
back
All
in a
right. Well,
couple
I'll come
minutes.
back in 5 minutes. Hold on. I gotta.
Okay. All right, boys. Twitch.tv/ragepope. Go ahead and hit me with those Twitch primes. Be back in a minute.
This motherfucker. Are you fucking joking? Oh, I should have muted this son of a bitch. Ugh. Okay, I'm back. I don't know if he is as well. I need someone to pin down specific parts that I've had disagreements with. This is something that I should be doing. This is something that I should have done. I think Destiny does a really good job at this, where he'll like write down points of contention so we can like arrive at it again, like we can go back to it. The only one that I can remember is like the difference of I guess the different definitions. All right, hold on, I'm gonna write this down right now.
Great job on the Raj show.
No one knows what is happening. Why? I've stopped here multiple times over the last weeks, and I haven't seen a single Dobre. You are officially phased down for good. Yeah, I know. Am I crazy? Am I like losing my mind, or did he literally say the government? Like, did he originally start off by saying government regulations is bad on pricing, and then he turned around and was like, actually, it would be good if the government did something to benefit the consumer, but is not doing it. Like, and DGGers, I know you guys are in here. Just tell me if I'm wrong. Look, I'm just not my sycophants. I want to hear from you guys who are
Okay, I'm back. Sorry, you had open airwaves, and I figured you wouldn't mind sharing them with me.
yeah. Okay, so I forgot where the fuck we were, but there's
Okay,
here are some
we were talking
problems that
about
I have.
specific. We were talking about specific examples of when it's good and bad for a government to regulate prices, right? So I think floors and ceilings specifically are bad ways to affect prices. I think subsidies and Pigovian taxes are good to affect prices. And I think redistributive policies can be okay on a case-by-case basis, right? Where we take from the people who can afford and we give it to or from the people who can afford things and give it to people who can't because they've been disproportionately affected, right?
Sorry, can you repeat that again? I was writing down.
Okay, so, sure. So I think price floors and price ceilings specifically are bad ways to affect prices. I think price subsidies and taxes to change price economics is a good way to affect the market. I think specifically
like what do you mean by okay, but price subsidies in the form of what? Like
so
like helping facilitate drug production, like R&D?
Yeah, so like research,
But we already
like
do that.
university funded.
But we literally
sure,
do that.
Sure, but we should do more of it because we're getting more dollars for every research dollar to help our people than what
But if
we're
we're
getting
already
now,
doing
right?
that,
So if I spent,
I know, but if we're
because
already
not
doing
doing
that,
enough of it.
right? If
It's
we're
like
already
saying,
doing that,
it's like saying,
and the companies are not, if we're already doing that, and the companies are not changing their price points,
because we're spending fuck all in terms of money.
do you know what percentage of like private corporations go into R&D?
A lot, because that's the way to make money in the service economy is to have intellectual property.
Yeah, no, not R&D that's like funded. I'm not purchasing R&D. I'm saying like actually developing inside a private corporation, like inside a pharmaceutical corporation, developing a new drug. Like what percentage of that goes to marketing versus what percentage of that goes to R&D? I think it's closer to 20-80, not purchasing.
There's way too much that goes. There's way too much that goes to marketing. Sure, and I agree. We should probably not have those shitty ads that says tell your doctor about how this thing's going to affect your body, because that's a fucking dumb point, and we're not going to make that point. Because I think it's dumb, and I think we should get rid of it. But I think the profit motive for people to have it is good.
Okay. Yeah. But you're okay. There are a couple claims that I don't think you've proven are successful at all. Like there are a couple claims that I think you're just completely incorrect on. One of them being that price restrictions just eradicate the profit motive or the profit incentive to
They
develop
don't necessarily
drugs.
eradicate all of it, but they eradicate some of it, which is not what you want. So I like to use minimum wage for this because it's the easiest way to demonstrate the effects of setting a price floor or a price ceiling, right? I'm not saying that I necessarily want to get rid of the minimum wage or increase it or decrease it, but this is the easiest way to physically demonstrate what happens with a price floor or price ceiling, right? So right now, the minimum wage in the United States is like $7.25, I think, right?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you why that's a terrible example, but go on. Yeah.
No. So if we increase the price floor, or sorry, the price floor of that minimum wage to say $15, right? In the long run, people will lose jobs because their labor is not worth $15. Or let's go more extreme. Let's say we raise it to $100, right? There will be an increase in unemployment because of the $100 raise to minimum wage. Now, that's not saying that we can't do other things to help those people, but there just necessarily will be a loss in jobs.
Okay.
Do you agree with that statement?
I agree that depending on depending on how you raise the minimum wage, there could be a decrease in jobs. Yes.
Yes. So that's just what I use to say price ceiling or floors,
Okay,
right?
but
So
the reason why this is like a faulty, the reason why this is like a faulty analogy, or like is
this is just
completely.
descriptive. This
I
is
know, but
descriptive of a price
it's
floor.
not even like in any way, shape, or form. You're not describing the situation in the United States in regards to.
No, I'm not
In
talking
regards
about.
to, I know, but it's not even a comparison that you could use here because, like, when you're talking about the profit motive potentially being harmed, you're and then turning around to talk about like
I'm just
minimum
I'm
wage
not trying to use
increases.
this as an example of minimum wage increase bad. I'm just saying in general, when you set a price floor, you're going to cut some firms out of the market because they can't or
Okay,
because
first of all,
they
no,
can't buy at that
like
price, right?
there's also look. I said that minimum wage can potentially lead to job losses, but like it's not. God damn it. Okay.
No. Minimum wage itself has a lot more complicating factors. We can agree with it, but in
Yeah,
general, when you raise
but
that floor,
even beyond that, it's like it's not something that you can use here, considering that a big chunk of the like pharmaceutical research and development comes from publicly funded institutions and directly through public grants. So like it's not even
uh,
a like there is the profit motive just like sits on top of that. The only thing that like pharmaceutical corporations do on top of the R&D is basically say we're buying this out and then we're going to substitute like certain parts of this, like certain parts of like delivery protocols of these of this medication, for example.
yeah,
And then
and you know how much that costs to go through like FDA trials?
what FDA trials? $3 million, I think.
Try again.
What do you mean try again? Is it not literally, or is it 30?
The median cost of a new drug is about $20 million
Oh
just
yeah,
for the
sorry,
drug
it's not
once it's
3.
developed, right?
I think it's 20 million. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, and so that's just
Um,
like median cost. So there's some that are cheaper, some more expensive, right?
okay, but hold on. What do you mean? Like the uh yeah, I fucking messed up. I
So
said 3 instead of 30.
no, that's fine. I'm not trying to pin you down on that point,
All
right?
right, no, no,
So,
no,
but
no. Hold
it's
on, hold
great.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on. But like, it's a lot. I get that, but like,
Yeah,
it
so-
it obviously is a necessity. Like that. Are you saying that like we could
Oh,
we could
no,
be cutting away
absolutely.
from like FDA? Like, what do you mean?
No, absolutely not. I'm saying we should be cutting away from FDA. So then, on top of that, do you know what it costs to keep a lab in compliance to be able to produce drugs?
Wait, say that again.
So
Repeat that again.
what is the compliance cost per year to keep like some lab equipment able to produce drugs?
Oh, I don't know.
It's very expensive. I don't know the numbers, but it's somewhere in the order of 2 to 3 times cost of the FDA trial, right? So that's an ongoing cost that they have to maintain during manufacturing, that a lot of these other countries have to deal with lesser standards of. Other places like you may not need even a third or half or a quarter of the cost for these ongoing compliance costs that are used to keep people safe. So when you have like a disease,
But if
say
this
that like
doesn't matter, like, wait, first of all,
it
like,
does matter because that's a big
so
thing that
that's
drives
why we're
drug
paying
costs up,
more,
right?
is what you're saying, and it's not actually because of like.
No, I'm not saying that, that's the only reason why we're paying more. But so we have all these costs that have to be, that the company has to come over to overcome in order to produce the drug, right? And so if they can produce for like $1 a pill,
So
and they
how
can
are
charge
other
$10.
but you literally mentioned like a 25% decrease in productivity, right? But like
Because they
25%
have
decrease
lower
in like the
overhead.
number of patents for like in an effort to say like, well, it's less productive in European nations
So
in totality.
productivity of research.
Hold on. But it's 10 times higher in prices, then there's obviously something that doesn't add up with your math.
No. So all right, so let's say we're going to produce 1 million pills, right? And it's gonna cost us $200 million to make to do all the research and everything. We're gonna exclude all the marketing. We're gonna say it costs $200 million, right? So
Wait, why are
if
we excluding all of the
I
the porky
because
parts of the pharmaceutical industry that's run
I
and
don't defend
operated
those.
exclusively
I think
for
those are bad
profit?
things that we should get out. I think the marketing stuff is really bad, and we shouldn't have that.
Okay,
I
but
think the
it
profit motive
sounds
is great
like
for the underlying
you
research.
can never be pinned down on a point if you keep operating on this like utopian capitalist ideal where you think that like these companies are never going to stop
because it's not
working the way that they
necessarily
do, and the only way that they
cost. You
and the
can't.
only way that we can incentivize them is by like having no restrictions whatsoever, and then you then turn around and
think
say,
that's
well,
a
it's really
better way.
expensive to get drug. Like
I never
it's
said
really
that we want
expensive to get the
no
FDA to
restrictions.
like test out a drug, or it's really expensive to do upkeep. Like
I said over and over that we need to have the government to intervene where we have things that aren't equitable and things that where people are being disproportionately affected. And so I'm trying to explain in a more simple term to you why having a fat American market where they're able to charge 10 times the drug market as other countries is able to recoup their costs where they're able to sell it at a tenth the price overseas. So if we have this hypothetical million pills that we're making, right? And they're $200,000, or sorry, they're and then we can produce additional pills at $1 per, and it costs $200 million, right? If we sell all of them to Americans at 10 times the markup, we can continue to produce additional pills at $1 per and sell them for $1.05,
this literally does
$1.10,
not account.
$1.20.
But this does not account for
So-
why
so-
companies are selling at a loss to other
Because
nations. Like
They're
it
not
just
selling
does
at a
not.
loss. They're still selling at a profit.
Okay,
They're
so
selling
that
at
means
an
we can
average
lower the
loss.
prices, right?
No, because they're selling at a loss compared to the average price per pill, but they're selling at a profit compared to the marginal price to produce that next pill. If they're not going to overcome the price to produce that pill in America, well, then they can't make it for $1 per, because the whole all-in price of the pill is, yes, at a loss in those countries, but it's being subsidized by the Americans who are paying more. If we buy $200 million worth of pills in America, that covers all the costs for the pills that we have, and then we can sell for $1.01 and still make profit overseas. But if we're selling for $1.01 in America, we're not going to recoup that $200 million investment, and then we're not going to make that drug, which is a very bad thing.
Okay, first of all, that's completely incorrect regardless. Especially considering that like other countries of as you admitted, like if that was the case, then other countries would not be producing any drugs at all. So, like,
Because the marginal cost for a drug is negligible. It costs like 2 cents to make Cialis, but they
I
sell it
know.
for $30 a
I
pop.
understand that.
But the thing is, you have the big cost hurdle that you have to come up with in order to get the drug to be able to made, to even find that drug. So they're not going to look for that drug.
We're subsidizing a gigantic part of the research and development, and then on top of that, like the drugs are already fairly cheap to produce. It almost seems like a single entity controlling this production would be much better and much more effective and much more efficient. That's the point, especially considering that like that companies currently are as you admitted engaging in marketing. Like they're spending too much money on marketing.
Sure, but
And also if that was the case, if pricing was a significant problem, then there wouldn't be any drugs that are being produced overseas, any new drugs being found overseas. It would all just exclusively come from America, which is not true.
No, it's not. There's just less made because the price is capped on them. They would rather produce them in America because they can make more money off of them. And when there's more money to be made off of a drug, you can afford to research more expensive drug treatments. So let's say that we're pricing the drug for $250 million or whatever is the price cap for this total drug, right? Well, that means any cure that's going to cost more than $250 million or that can't be sold for more than $250 million isn't going to be researched. And so
all right, so let's not. Yeah. So wait, first of all, that's not true. No, let's nationalize it completely, and let's let the government deal with it. Then I agree.
So
I agree that the profit motive is bad when it comes to creating new drugs.
Sure. So then, how effective are government researchers in creating these drugs versus the private sector?
How effective are government researchers in creating new drugs? There is absolutely no way that you're going to use. There is no way that you can win this argument unless you mean like different patents. Unless you're using like, are you saying that like the National Institute of the like universities, like all these public institutions are not considered?
We have the NIH, we have the CDC, we have DARPA, we have all these publicly funded institutions that are making cancer medicines and things like that. So dollar for dollar, who is more effective at coming out with more drugs for
No,
more.
the key word here is effective. It depends on what you mean by effective.
So for every dollar spent on research, who produces the most drugs that help the
Okay,
most?
so here's the issue. Like, and I know you're gonna like, unless you're talking about new drugs being created, then the government 100%, or anything that touches like anything that touches public funding in general. But if you're talking about like new delivery methods, or if you're talking about like new ways of implementing, just like anything that extends a patent, then potentially.
I'm not talking about anything that extends a patent. There's a lot of bullshit that happens there, but for the most part, private industry is what comes up dollar for dollar, significantly more effective than any publicly funded research. It is founded on publicly funded research, which is good and better for society. And sure, we might want to tax them a little bit more so that the people who can't afford their drugs could potentially get them if they could benefit from that. But
wait,
dollar for dollar,
wait,
the
dollar
private
for
industry
dollar.
is
What
better.
like private? You're saying like private institutions are better at.
Are better at taking just generic.
Where is this
research
coming
and
from? Are better at taking what?
that they're better at turning public research and their own research in general into actionable things. Public research has done a lot of great things for the country, and a lot of private companies are founded on public research and should probably be taxed more to kind of reflect the fact of where they're actually getting their initial funding. But in terms of creating actionable things, in terms of drugs, in terms of inventions, in terms of cars, the private industry is better at doing that.
Wait, hold on. We're talking about pharmaceuticals, and now you're talking about something with inelastic demand for the most part. Where now you're adding other commodities. If you're adding additional commodity production, yes, I think that.
What does inelastic demand have to do with who's more effective at using dollars? Inelastic is just a way to describe the fluctuation in goods based on the price, right?
Why do you think I have a significant problem with
Listen, so we're not talking about final profit that people are spending. We're talking about how much spending the private company spends on research versus how much money the government spends on research to produce this product. This isn't the cost to consumer. This is the cost to produce. Dollar for dollar, the private money being spent is more effective.
Because I care about people dying if they can't purchase medication. What the fuck do you mean? The only reason I don't want to implement price regulations because I think like it'll be more efficient. I want to implement price regulations because I think people will be able to purchase medication and then they won't die. That's literally the reason. And if you completely suck that reality out of this conversation, then I guess, yeah, slave labor would be more efficient in commodity production, potentially.
That has nothing to do.
And also, where is the data coming from? You keep look, man. You keep adding like. You keep doing these little things where we're talking about pharmaceutical production and research and development, and you say what is the success metric, and you then add like you add commodities like cars and shit when we're having a conversation about
if we're looking at
R&D and like,
right, should we not look at NASA funded research that gets implemented in GPS? Is that not something that we should look at and say yes, that's publicly funded, and yes, that's something private industry has done? Do you want to look only specifically at like medicine or research spending? I can find studies.
When we're having a conversation about conversation about pharma, why would I don't give a fuck about TV production, like whether the government's better at making TVs. Yeah, we're talking about pharmaceuticals, like heavily subsidized by the government already to begin with. So yes, no, I don't want I don't want you to like try to find a talking point that suits your perspective.
No, we're not talking about perspectives. Public research, for the most part, is about finding potential targets. It's about finding things, lines of research, which could have specific actions come, right? So once the public research finds that whatever this GCPR is a good target for whatever individualized medicine, right? You can make some special proteins to essentially attack this target on the cell and beat this cancer. Then the private industry is better dollar for dollar to design the drug that hits that target that's found by public funding.
Okay, where is the data coming from for this?
All right, I've got like a whole list. I'll have to grab things after the show and send them to you. I will send this to you.
Okay.
I'll try to find that right now.
Because like virtually there is no, like I can't think of a single instance of like, I mean, I'm sure there is one, but I can't think of like any significant achievement that's been made on like in pharmaceutical research and development that hasn't touched like
Oh no,
actual
I'm not
that
disagreeing
hasn't
with.
touched like actual like
I'm not
taxpayer
disagreeing.
funding.
Oh no, there's
And
definitely
and
there's
if
been
you
very
mean
little.
like if you're accounting like universities as private institutions, then sure.
No, those are public institutions. Anything publicly funded research versus privately
Okay.
funded research. So publicly
So I
funded
don't
research would be
understand
like
it
a
then.
university.
Like
So a lot of this public research that's being done is very like baseline, right? It's like it's like coming up with the theory behind something, and then private with like physics, right? That's the best way to kind of describe it, where you get the base understanding of how this disease works or something, or right. And then the private is like engineering, where you apply those physics and say, all right, well, if this is how the disease progresses, well, then I can build this chemical molecule, which will be the drug to stop this disease. And so there's very little private development that happens that doesn't look at that public funding. You're absolutely right, and that the public funding does provide a lot to the base research, right?
well,
But
it
once
wouldn't
you're
work
looking at that,
without. Well, it wouldn't work because like there is
oh
so much money. It's a fucking sink. It's like it's a revenue sink basically. Like you just
oh
have
sure,
to.
but that
You're
provides
gonna
an
fail a thousand times until you find like the one fucking cure, and that's
yeah sure,
precisely
but
why these
there's
things
a
are
reason why.
heavily
Yeah,
subsidized by
yeah, there's a
taxpayers.
but yeah, but they're heavily subsidized, but you still have 5 times more spending from pharmaceuticals and research and development than you do by the public sector.
Research and development purchasing patents from existing research though, so the government is offsetting the sunk cost of all of those failures. That's the point.
What? I'm all right. So, what are you saying that the government or that the private people are doing that's offsetting the
When
sunk
you're
costs?
talking about R&D, do you mean like in-house research and development inside of
Yes,
like
in-house,
inside of a
inside of a biofarm
like
company
inside
or
of inside of a pharmaceutical industry, or are you adding like the
we're talking about
adding like the
actual
price
spending.
of patents that they're spending on R&D as well?
No, that those don't count towards R&D. This is actual researchers in the lab, an actual lab space, things like that.
Okay. And
So, so
my point was all right, even then my point was when like research and development, when you work inside of when you work at a pharmaceutical corporation, research and development has to be profitable because that's the profit motive is what they're focusing on. So
yes,
what
and
they're trying to create are drugs that are going to be profitable down the line, whereas public
no, it's
research.
not. They're trying to create anything that'll recoup some of the cost of discovery so they can take that knowledge and develop new things off of it. Because just because I create an unprofitable drug doesn't mean that that line of research that I had won't lead to a more profitable drug down the line, right? So
Okay,
let's say
but
that
okay, but like
we
okay,
can find examples specifically from drugs.
examples of like pharmaceutical corporations stopping is stopping like a potential research and development project because their patents are going to run out, or their patents are they can no longer extend the patent after like the third trial.
Yeah,
Or
sure.
the
So
third
then any
time.
other
So,
company
but
who
like my
thinks
point is
so
this.
then any
My
other
point is
company
this,
who
if you
thinks it's
wanna
going to be
have
cost
wide,
effective.
if you want to have research and development, especially in the pharmaceutical industry, or even like fucking
So
when you were
so
talking.
you're saying like the patents run out, and then when it no longer costs any money to do that research, that there's not other companies that come along and create generics or create other variants of those drugs?
No, when generics come into play, then they no longer have an incentive to like keep doing research and development on the same drug. But that's
Oh,
not
sure.
even. But hold on, you're missing the main point. The main
But
point is
we're
like
talking
if
about
you have the
development of new
profit,
drugs here, though.
if you have the
We're talking
profit
about
motive in
development of new
mind,
drugs.
if you have the profit motive in mind, your failure is still like your chances of failing are going to be significantly like not your chances of failure, but like your allotment for failure is going to be significantly smaller than publicly funded research, and that is a necessity. Is what I'm saying. That is an absolute necessity for pharmaceutical research.
No. So shit. Let me try to explain this. So when you're spending money on research, right, either through a public or private enterprise, right, the state doesn't have the same incentives to spend those research dollars efficaciously and cut off
Yes, and that's a
unprofitable.
good thing. And that's a good thing. That's my point.
That's not a good thing.
Why is that not a
If
good thing?
something so let's say that we're going down a research line, right, to produce some cancer drug, but we find out it's not going to work. Well, our lab's going to lose funding, and we're all going to lose our jobs. So what we would do is to continue to fund that to keep everyone having their jobs at the research institution and saying, no, this isn't
That's
going to
not
work.
true.
We need to close
You're
this up.
lying. You're just absolutely lying right now. You're lying.
How is that a lie?
That is insanely false.
That's the incentives. Those are the
That is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard, dude. If that was the case, then like there should be no fucking institutions for scientific achievement because they failed. They didn't make profit, so sorry. You're lying. That's just not how anything works. This is like you are a very intelligent person, but you're literally making like Alex Jones level arguments right now, or Steven Crowder level arguments.
These are the incentives
what the
that
fuck?
are aligned,
like
right?
NASA wouldn't exist. What are you talking about? Like nothing, no publicly funded research would exist if they were also operating in a similar fashion to how private corporations operate.
But they're not. But they're only doing that for fundamental level research. Once you're getting into applied research, government research spending is garbage.
Garbage in the sense of efficiency, right? That's what you're saying, because they are not operating on the same metrics.
So for every amount of resource spent, you're going to get less out of it, which is a bad thing. I think you want more resources to come out, and then when the resources come out, you can redistribute those to people who are more disproportionately affected by it and who can't afford that medication, because we want those new things to come out. It's good that they make these drugs, but it's bad that they charge people too much for them.
Okay. You didn't negate anything I said. Like you didn't counter what I was talking about.
I agree with the fundamental principle is that when drugs come out and they're very expensive and people can't get them, that is a bad thing. But I think that it's good that we allow the private industry to do it because they'll make more drugs. I think we need to have regulation so that when the research does come out, we get more better things for society.
We just like would not have significant leaps in technological achievements require a lack of the profit motive. Short term, like
for fundamental research only, not for applied research.
The difference here is like, yeah, but okay, what do you mean by applied then?
So applied research is when you're actually building out something that can act on something, right? So if you're trying to figure out like what the hell a radio wave is and how it works, that's usually government funded, and it's usually foundational or exploratory research, right? But when I'm building a radio to sell to people, that would be applied research. How can I make money off of this radio?
Okay. Explain to me how that is different than when it comes to pharmaceuticals. How what you're saying is different than
sure. So
here's
an
oral suppository versus an anal one or whatever. That's the main distinction that pharmaceutical corporations engage in regards to research and development, rather than like finding new cures, which would not be applied but fundamental research.
So
not suppository,
those things that they're doing, I don't agree with as appropriate R&D expenditures. The applied research that I'm talking to about. So let's go through the development of a cancer drug, right? So let's say we want to deal with like colon cancer or something, right? So what happens is you have publicly funded exploratory research of how does colon cancer actually work? What things in the cells, what checkpoints are being disrupted? And then you have that research that comes out that says, this specific gate in cell production is wide open, right? So that's your foundational level research. Then you have your applied research where every single private company goes, oh, I know this GCPR in particular will unfuck this protein gate, right? Or this gate in the mitosis cycle or whatever, right? And so then they go and they design 100 million molecules to try to hit that specific target. And then once one of those hits, they have their cancer drug because it stops the colon cancer. So when you're in the exploratory phase, you're right. That doesn't happen in the public sector or in the private sector because there's not a profit motive, and we should probably fund that more. But when you're talking about the actual specific application of how do we develop a drug to hit this thing, you're dollar for dollar more efficient in terms of time and resources, which are what dollars measure, in the private industry building those drugs out so someone can be saved from colon cancer.
Okay. I would love to see your data on this.
Okay.
That's because like we're never we're like I don't believe you. I don't know how else
okay. That's fine. That's fine. I can find those data sources for you. If we're gonna disagree on that, I can find those for you. I can send those to you.
Okay. Okay. You already conceded that like we would not have the fundamental research without clinical trials without like the government funding this.
Sure, and I'm not for rampant capitalism where you can just do whatever you want
and
and
then
austerity. I think you do
like
need a
the
layer of
goalpost
government
is
regulation
changing
on
here.
top
I know,
of
but
it.
the goalpost is
The
changing
goalpost
here.
has never changed.
Okay,
The goalpost has never changed. The goalpost has
because
always
you're
been.
talking about efficiency, and I mentioned this earlier on before you even went on this rant about how like earlier on before you went on this data point about how private corporations are more efficient at applied sciences, and then you ventured off into like different commodities rather than pharmaceuticals. I mentioned that
because there's
the
a lot more
government is handling the fundamentals, which requires a fuckload more, which requires a tremendous amount more capital in investment and failure.
No, it doesn't. It just if you're
So
spending
saying
5
that,
times
like,
as
so you're
much
saying
money
that
on
applied
research,
sciences are easier. You're saying that applied sciences are much more difficult to
they're more difficult,
come up with
but
than
they're
the
more
fundamentals.
profitable. Because yes, but it's a lot. It's
Wait,
not
how?
profitable to come up with the fundamentals. The incentives aren't there.
Wait,
because
how is
who
it?
cares
Wait, how
that
can
we
you
have
make
gravity?
that? No, you just said yes. You need to describe what you mean by that.
Okay, so so we spend about, I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but something like 5 or 6 or 7 times the amount on applied research than fundamental level research. For the private sector, there's very strong factors, or I'm fucking up the words, but there's very strong reasons or very incentives. There we go. Very strong incentives for the private sector to do applied research. There's not very much for them to do exploratory research, despite it being great for society.
Well,
like
the reason why is because the government is handling it. Why the fuck would they? Why would they sink a shitload of money into fundamental research when the government has to do it? Because the government cares about its citizens, whether you like it or not. They have to do things that are good for citizens, not because of profit. Whereas if a corporation is operating simply on the profit motive, it seems like they don't do the fundamental research.
So like that's the thing though. Like the government, we should have the government intervening in things, but we don't want it doing things that it's not good at. So fundamental research is good. Private industries have no reason.
But then
to
your
do fundamental
definition of good relies on the fact that the government is literally fucking offsetting. The government is literally offsetting the cost for private industries to just come in and capitalize on the fundamental research that already took a tremendous amount of capital.
If only the government had some way of extracting some of its costs back through some way of like receiving money through its citizens that it gives positive externalities to, or from industries profiting off of it, right?
No, I agree. I think taxing is good. Like taxation is.
I think taxation is a good way to recoup some of the government's costs from that, right?
That's the wait. What are you? Wait.
So when this
what do you mean? Like, what do you think? I'm some fucking libertarian or some shit? I don't understand.
I don't know. It sounds like it, because what you're saying right now is they're funding this research for just out of the goodness of their hearts. But when these companies go make a shit ton of money, you can tax it, right? And then you
think the government is operating? Wait. You think the government is operating on the profit motive as well? Because they're like,
no,
they have an incentive that like they want to get more taxes. Like it's a fucking shop.
In a ton of corrupt countries, that's the way it operates.
But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about America.
We are talking about America.
Why do you keep changing the fucking argument? I'm sick and tired of this fucking conversation. I can't do this anymore if you keep running around every time you're backed into a corner. What the fuck?
All right, so...
Oh, yeah, no. Tell me more about pharmaceutical production in Zimbabwe, motherfucker. Like, what the fuck? We're talking about America for the past hour and a half. Why would we all of a sudden shift over to fucking how pharmaceutical production occurs in I don't know, some African nation?
You're saying that there's no motive for the government to get more profits, and yes, there is. Just because our government is generally benevolent, but there are governments whose motive is to take in more profit.
Okay. I guess there are corrupt governments, so all governments are bad. What the fuck are you saying? We're talking about America.
Yeah, I'm not talking about all governments are bad.
Okay, then why did you bring it up? Why did you bring up that is it?
Because you said specifically that there's specifically no motive for the government to make more profit.
We're talking about America. In America, that is not how it works. In America, the sole point of the fucking government in America, especially as it pertains
the president of the United States, who's not violating the pharmaceutical clause.
Hold on, let me finish.
So you agree?
Let me finish.
You agree that the president isn't using his position to funnel money to his businesses. You agree with that statement? There's no profit incentive for him to funnel money to his businesses.
I'm going to die. I'm gonna fucking die. I'm gonna say some fucked up shit. Okay, stop. Just stop and let me describe what I'm saying. Okay. In America, where we were talking about, and in developed nations in general, the government doesn't work as a way to just like take your taxes and then operate on the profit motive and like give you nice things because you'll get more taxes in return. This is not like this is an insane conversation that we're having if that's like your point of view. Especially as it pertains to research and development. Like the like all of our publicly funded research is not like scientists inside of fucking labs doing clinical trials on Alzheimer's medication are not doing it because they're like, well, the government's going to get more taxes in return down the line. If we do a good job.
Great.
So why the fuck would you say that?
I never said that they were doing it because of that. I'm saying that the incentives are different between the government and the private industry, right? So here's the thing. So then if you're saying that, right, so if the government is just as efficient as private industries, right, how do you determine how much that Alzheimer's medication is worth versus developing a new insulin drug versus developing some boner pills, right? How do you determine those in your system?
How do I determine the price of
no, just whatever resources you want to spend on developing drugs, right? So if you have the full government control, right, how do you determine what drugs you're going to try to make for your people? And then how much resources are you going to expend on them, right?
How does it work currently?
So currently we have essentially market forces, right? So supply and demand. So we can make boner pills and there's a huge demand for it. So we can charge them a fuck ton of money for pills.
Need, right?
But no one needs to get a boner. You don't need to have sex. You're not going to die from it.
but you're substituting like Viagra for medication that's a necessity for survival.
Okay, sure. So all right, so cool. Let's look at two drugs, right? So let's say that we have a cancer drug, right, for 1 million people per year, like some lung cancer, right? And then we have another one that is going to be a rare leukemia that 100 kids per year are going to get. Which one are we going to do?
Wait, say that again. Sorry.
So we have a drug that is going to that's going to affect 1 million people with like lung cancer, right? And we can treat that. Or we have a disease that is going to affect 100 kids with like some rare form of leukemia, right?
Okay.
So both of those are going to cost $500 million to develop. Which one are you going to do, right?
You're going to do both, but starting with the first one that affects, like starting with the one that has immediate need. Also, this is like you're giving me a fucking trolley problem here, as though like
I'm not giving you a trolley problem. I'm giving you a resource allocation problem of how do you actually allocate resources in your system, right? Because that $500 million that was spent to save those 100
but you
kids,
do both.
well,
like how the fuck does how would this be offset by capitalist enterprise?
Because we could charge the kids $500,000 each to not die from cancer, and then we can charge the other ones $50 each, or sorry, $500 each to recoup the cost of both drugs. But you would say that in the second case,
no, I'm not letting you fucking get away with that. Get the fuck out of here. Where is the original fundamental research coming from? It's still coming from our pockets. So you literally act like,
and you don't think
you literally are acting like private enterprise is just like out of nowhere, not utilizing any government resources whatsoever, and coming up with drugs on their own, even though you literally admitted that it has to be profitable for them to work on it.
I'm saying that we have some sort of governmental regulation, aka taxes, to recoup the cost that is coming through that fundamental research. So when the applied research fails, the government doesn't bear the brunt of that cost. But when it does succeed, we can tax it and recoup the cost of that research that we're doing, and then we can continue to do it. I fail to see how that's not coming through correctly.
Okay. Then why did you say it costs $5 to make one medication and $500,000 for the other?
Because you're
it's literally what you're doing right now is like, in my utopian capitalist ideal society, everything's going to be good, and in your current
it's definitely fucking not. That's why we need to have good governmental reforms.
No, dude, but then when I ask you then You just like fucking keep making claims. You don't back the claims.
I'm not making
up.
claims. I'm trying to use examples to you to try to elicit what you actually want from your system, right? So we have the case where we have the $500 million drug for 1 million or 100 people, right? So you're going to have vastly different costs for those drugs to research, right? But that $500 million you could also allocate to, I don't know, some poor people, put them in housing. You could give them food. It's how do you allocate your resources if you don't have price to drive what the research or what the stuff is worth?
Okay. I told you, currently there is a demand. We know what the demand is, right? So we adjust our supply in accordance to the demand. I'm not saying that like the government just like pulls it out of their fucking ass where they're like, you know what? We're just gonna make, 17 insulin insulin needles, and we're gonna do 25 cancer drugs. Like, it doesn't work that way. What you're talking about,
you're talking about
the conversation that we're having is so shocking to me, because like it operates in a similar fashion even without the profit motive.
How? Because now you're still having to raise this money somehow, and you're trying to determine should you be doing this cancer drug? Should you be doing housing? There's all these other things.
Are you saying that like pharmaceutical production would not exist if the government allocated what do you think happens? Hold on. Let me ask you.
The allocation
what do you
of
think
resources
happens
would be different.
What do you think happens in the UK? Okay, this is a perfectly acceptable analogy. Yep. Unlike the ones that you've thrown my way thus far. What do you think happens in the UK, for example? You think like people are just fucking dying because they have like diseases that are too unique? They're just like, sorry, we can't deal with this because we've just allocated too many doctors to dealing with fucking people that break their asses or whatever.
It's the same thing that happens in all the other countries when you have diseases that don't have drugs developed for them. They die just the same as they do here in the United States, and the same way that they do in Zimbabwe when they don't have the drugs to treat their disease.
I know, but we're talking about allocation, right? Like, you're saying that there is a significant problem in
So what's
you're saying that like it's impossible basically that if there are two separate diseases, like the allocation of resources is going to be based on a utilitarian principle, which is understandable, which will then mean that like the other people are going to die. So if they're dying under capitalism, they're going to die under fucking any other way of organizing society as well.
This goes back to research efficiency that we talked about before, how the United States was producing more per dollar than overseas. So then in the West Europe and then in the rest of the world with a smaller economy, right? Because we're spending more on it and we're spending it through private enterprise. So we're developing more drugs, which they're able to piggyback off of. So without the capitalist incentive, we would just not be making some of these drugs, or we'd be heavily taxing.
That's not true. That's not true at all. That's just not true. I mean, it's just not true. I don't know what else to say. Then that's just not fucking true. If that was the case, then I mean, you keep saying some. So as soon as you add some in there, it seems like what you're saying is right, but it's not right. Like, if you had more balls, you would say, no, this doesn't occur without a profit incentive, but you don't have the balls to say that. So you're saying, well, some of the drugs would not be implemented, or some of the drugs would not be invented. Yeah, you're fucking right. True. Some of them wouldn't. Which is bad. I
would rather more drugs be invented, and then we have some sort of system to distribute those drugs so people can get
I would rather have drugs be
capitalism.
Created, and then on top of that, everyone have access to them, rather than all of the coolest drugs being created and only having some people have access to it because of a lack of pricing controls or pricing restrictions that exist in every other fucking country. And obviously, considering that these pharmaceutical corporations are not magnanimously operating at a fucking loss of profit when they sell to all of these other countries, then especially when considering that a lot of them substitute different patents for different countries.
They're making money at a profit compared to their marginal cost, but they're making a loss compared to their average total cost. You have to include the fixed cost of research and the cost of the pills that they sell.
But you're also piggybacking the fixed cost of again. You're doing it again. The fixed cost of research that you're piggybacking off of is the tremendous amount of cost of research development that the public
It's not that
sector.
tremendous. It's 15 to 20% of the research expenditure, one, and two, you can still add taxes on it, so you can recoup that cost instead of doing what the government should do, which is provide that money free of charge because people are getting better off from it. If you really want to make sure the government has that profit incentive, well, they can tax the shit out of these companies that are using their fundamental research. That has nothing to do with the incentives of the research company to do research.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I mean, I genuinely don't know where we can go from here. Like,
Okay. Well, thanks for having me
like
on.
it's just
Appreciate it. Don't.
I don't know why. Like, all right. Well, anyway, thanks for coming on, man. This is the
Yeah.
reason why you disagree with me. And you're gonna send me the additional information, right?
Yeah. So
That you
wanted
mentioned.
the information. So you wanted the information on the research efficiency of public versus private in the United States, and then
For
USA versus
pharmaceutical,
West Europe.
no, for pharmaceutical,
Pharmaceutical,
drug manufacturing.
pharmaceuticals. So, all right, I'll do the best I can to get that for you, and then I will also get the one for the U.S. versus the rest of the world, and then yeah, if you ever want to call, I guess you know how to get me.
Okay. And finally, just give me one additional point, which is that
Oh, sure, yeah. I think it's
which
really
is that
fair
like
when you hear anyone-
you are, because originally you came in to be like, we
Oh,
have
yeah,
fundamental
yeah.
disagreements
Yeah, so
and
my
like,
second one is just like generally when anyone's like further right to you, or like even just like Trump supporters, you like smear them as a racist or like lump them all in with like the really bad people, right? They're not necessarily all the same. It's like me lumping you in with the tankies or like Destiny's people in with you. I think that's a bad take. I think that alienates people.
oh, I'm
and
glad that you have a difference in opinion with Destiny on something then.
Where do you think Destiny gets all his opinions?
Yeah. I don't know.
All right.
Especially when it comes to crypto tankies and whatnot. I don't know where he gets them. Okay. All right.
All right,
Well, yeah.
thanks for the
Send me
time.
the information. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, we'll do. If you guys want to just watch me dick around on stream, I'm twitch.tv/ragepope.
Wait, what?
Right.
Say it again. Just say it appropriately.
Twitch.tv/ragepope if you want to see me like mess around on other video games.
Okay. No. You just like spell it out, dude. I'm trying to get you to.
RAGEPOPE, Ragepope.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Hasan. If you
All
ever
right.
want to talk again, my DMs are open.
All right. We'll do that. Okay. All right. I can't wait for. All right. Are we excited for? Are we excited for the? Are we excited for the loser POV spam that's about to come in here? Yeah. Loser POV lol. Okay. We'll do Chad Vice. Wow, it's almost like next you're gonna say loser POV lol. Why did it sound like that debate happen when his framing from the literal first 10 seconds was completely incorrect? I don't know, because if I didn't, then everyone would be like, you're not charitable and you're wrong and you fucking suck. So yeah. Anyway, we don't have people lined up yet. If you can please bring on guests and talk to them first. Okay, since there's no one lined up for Chad Vice, I can still keep bringing in other DGGers if we have, but don't use the no balls argument. I'm literally DGG's champion, Keck. No, I don't want a circle jerk. I want to have. Well, while we're waiting for Chad Vice, I told you guys that I was gonna do it. Wasn't it supposed to be a discussion, not a debate? No. I think it was gonna always be a debate. How do I get girls to like me when drug companies are more efficient than public institutions, dollar for dollar? Oh, there's people waiting? Okay, Jeffy has another DGGer. I haven't cooked or eaten yet today. I'm really fucking getting hungry, but... I disagree with that take. It doesn't fucking matter what other people think about your approach. You have a huge platform and need to be careful about who you let on, because that guy just wasted over an hour of our time wasting complete bullshit framing. Okay, it doesn't matter because I will be engaging people with bullshit framing in the marketplace of ideas. So the fact that I let him get away with it is just bad. I fucked up.
I'm not God.
Is 39 Daft that girl I raid all the time? Or not all the time. The one that calls me Hasan? Chat Vice for a leftist dating a conservative? Okay, we'll do it. What the fuck? He did well and know what he was talking about. Yeah, I can't explain how the framing was bad though. What do you mean? Okay, number one, the incorrect definition of like economic and political socialism, just completely ridiculous. And it's on you to prove him wrong. This is so dumb. No, I understand that 100%. I just let it go, and I shouldn't have let it go. You're waiting in the VIP room. Okay. Telling someone they are wrong doesn't make them wrong. Telling someone, okay. Yeah, like literally, the earth is flat. Oh, if you say you're wrong, then sorry, you have to now talk about why it's the globe. It's like that. And it's not like a working definition of economic. And 39 Daft down for Chad Vice collab dog. Yeah, I'm down. Why can't the government make a loss on medicine? It's about saving lives, right? Yeah, it is. We already mentioned that. We couldn't even get to Digi bro. Oh Jesus fucking Christ. I hate the DGG shit. No, it's like I did mention the definition, the distinction between economic and wait, when he makes an assertion that like economic and political socialism is one thing, economic socialism is one thing, and political socialism is another thing, and I mentioned that like economic and political socialism are deeply intertwined with one another, and you can't separate them from one another. That's not enough of a counter? Is that what you guys are saying? Like, is that what it is? And it's like, and then what? Economic socialism is whatever he decides economic socialism is, and political socialism is what he decides what political socialism is. I'm sorry that I didn't work within his framing or like. Okay, take notes for every point they make. Stick to point and already heavily disallow jumping from point to point. I know it's really fucking bad. I really do need to do that. That's not enough of a counter. What would be a good enough of a counter? If I described, I don't know, let's say the material conditions of commodity production and how how that leads to negative consequences in the way that it distributes resources and wealth and also power, because I literally did say that. And he denied it, and then he continued off of his definition. So I did say that. Stop looking at DG off screen. I haven't gone into DGG in a very long time. Dodging is an effective debate tactic. DGG is right here, baby. All right, where's the DGG in my VIP? Is that who it is? Optimus Primate. Okay, let's do it. Hasan Debate Corner. All right, what's up?
Hey, buddy. How's it going?
It's going all right. What's going on, man? Are you gonna what's your order of business?
Okay, so first and foremost, I've watched Destiny for quite a bit, so I apologize in advance if I say any of his mannerisms. It's like
Okay, it's
really
fine. I
hard not
understand.
to do
Everyone's
that.
been doing it.
Okay. Second of all, I think I'll just speak for the general opinion of chat. These aren't like my personal opinions, so if you feel like I'm personally attacking you, please tell me to stop right away. And blah 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 blah.
Go ahead.
So I was just gonna talk about like the drama aspect, I guess, and why Destiny, had this whole thing with you. I think the biggest problem was that I don't know if you consider yourself stubborn, but Destiny basically said that you're an ideologue, right? And you disagreed with him.
Um, it depends on what he means by ideologue. I think Destiny is just as much of an ideologue as myself.
Um,
And in that,
basically,
and what I mean
it,
by that is like again, it just completely depends on what you mean when you say ideologue. Because I believe that everyone is a bit of an ideologue. I would go so far as to say that I'm less of an ideologue than most people. In the and what
okay.
I mean by that is like I don't have a preset ideology that I completely subscribe to, and I don't
Mhm.
base my assumptions off of like I don't base my assumptions or base my opinions on whether something is good or bad off of that ideology. Like I don't believe in
Okay.
dogmatic thought.
Wait, can I cut in for a quick second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm a STEM lord. I know philosophy at all, so I'm not gonna get you on any of that. I also want to state that I am in fact not an Ian Miles Chong fan. I'm currently blocked by him. That was a blatant
I
lie
don't know why they
spread.
said that, but go
It's
ahead.
a blatant lie spread by propagandists on DGG that hate me. It is not true. And basically, what I want to talk about is when he said you're an ideologue, it means would you do anything and everything to push your beliefs, let's say for the politics and for who you think should become president? It's basically would you do anything and everything to get that passed?
Not anything and everything. Like I wouldn't hurt people. I wouldn't lie.
Hmm.
Um,
But would you, let's say, make not totally accurate, assumptions or statements about other people running against, let's say, Bernie Sanders, to let's say, make Bernie look better and support him and all that?
no, the reason why I like Bernie Sanders. So okay, so you're retroactively assigning, or whoever is making this assertion is retroactively assigning like guilt because of
Hmm.
maybe preconceived biases, but retroactively assigning guilt to the things I'm doing.
Hmm.
uh I'm not. The reason why I like Bernie Sanders is because of all of the things that I know about the other candidates, or things I know about the current system, and things I know about the way that the Democratic Party has been run, and the way that like our current government operates. And that's why I like Bernie Sanders. And then I look at all the other candidates, including Elizabeth Warren, who, in my opinion, is not as good as Bernie Sanders, but is still pretty decent on a lot of issues, and judge them appropriately, like according to all of the other things that I just mentioned.
Okay, so but basically, you agree that Bernie's the best person, president to run, right? So the whole question is, would you do something, let's say, not morally righteous or morally okay to get him passed? So the main contention was, would you spread something that's not 100% true, or would you attack other
No,
candidates in a
no, I
bad
wouldn't.
way?
And if I have, like, for
Hmm.
example, if there is like the Kamala Harris conversation is a good point for
Correct.
this. Like, if there is an issue with like something I framed, or the way I framed something, or the way I worded something, I conceded relatively early on that was
Okay.
incorrect in that conversation. If you go back to that debate, you'll see like, okay, I misworded it, I misspoke. Like that's not the best way to describe the situation.
True.
But then
True.
after Destiny said there is a gigantic difference between the two, I then followed up by saying, no, there isn't. These are both incredibly bad situations.
Okay. So I think the big issue is that, people conflict on what actually happened in that debate or whatever. But I think what happened is what you said something and what you meant might have been a bit of a confusion, because I think what Destiny heard from you and what some of us have heard from you was a bit different than what you actually believe and, you hold true to your heart, right?
What do you
Because
mean by that? Do you think
what
that,
we
like, for
heard,
example, I believe that like women who are on the verge of getting raped should not call the police officers?
no, I think most people can assume you didn't you don't actually believe that, knowing the kind of person you are. But in that debate, you did get pretty close to saying that, and it made a lot of people believe that.
Do you understand that that like calling the cops on especially people of color is a serious issue, and that answering that question in black and white terms, especially when the factor of whether or not like this person is actually going to get raped or whatever is like literally according to it's completely subjective. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in that circumstance, don't you think that I should also at least address that the real world is not as black and white as the way that like that hypothetical was trying to present it? And that's precisely why I said, yes, I think it's of course acceptable to call the police officers if you're in immediate danger, if you feel like you're in immediate danger, but like it just completely is circumstantial and depends on like what the situation is. And that saying that like, oh, a person is walking home alone and feels like they're threatened is not enough for me to make a like an accurate claim on whether or not it's like a reasonable point to call the cops.
No, you can. And let's say if you were.
Do you think I didn't make that? Do you think I didn't mention all those things in that conversation?
No, the issue is that I feel like for you personally, you feel like you can't answer a yes or no question without giving the full context about what you want to say and your whole belief is, right?
Yes, because and the reason for that is because I understand the consequences of my words.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the impact my words have.
The issue I was going to say is in that debate, what Destiny really wanted to find out from you, right? The whole reason he uses his extreme hypotheticals is to zero in on what the main contention is, right? So I guess the meme was that you said never call the cops, whatever, right? So basically, Destiny was trying to get you to agree that hey, there are some times where you can call the cops.
I said,
right?
okay, hold on. Let's just stop for a second.
Yeah.
Again, Destiny said that in the original example that he made, oh God, we're fucking going over this again. In the original example he made was literally, what if there are some random people out loitering, like outside of my house, like on the street, and I feel threatened by them. Can I call the cops? And I said, no, I would never call the cops under that circumstance.
I know.
Well,
this is
guess what? Wait, hold on. What if he followed it up with like, well, guess what? They actually had a rocket launcher trained on your apartment. So you just got fucking owned, friend. Like, that's literally the way that we're arguing in this conversation. And then he brought up a woman getting raped. Like, I didn't mean like you don't never call the cops. That's not my position, and that's never been my position.
Uh-oh. Can you please remove him, Hasan?
What?
Remove him. I'm scared.
Who?
Okay, he's staying silent. Okay, so the issue with hypotheticals is,
why are you worried about Mr. Mooten? Are you a bad boy?
Let's stay on topic. So
is he gonna do some shit, Mr. Mooten?
I just came here to listen. I don't fucking
know.
know.
Okay. All right.
He's threatening me right now. This is a microaggression, Hasan. I actually would.
Okay. Keep going. Come on.
So the issue with hypotheticals is, right, he wants to.
You sound like someone I've talked to before, by the way.
What?
You sound like someone I've talked to before on a different name.
Me?
Yeah. Anyway, just keep going. Whatever.
So the whole thing came down to was that you said, I think, maybe very quickly, or you obviously didn't mean it, but you said never call the cops on.
No, I said never call the cops in that situation. And of course, like there are still situations like where again, if he had added like, well, what if they have an RPG rocket launcher like trained at your house? Like, would you call the cops then? Yes, I think that's appropriate to call the cops then.
Okay, Hasan, can I just quickly fully say what I want to say? And I think
go ahead.
Agree with a lot of what I say. Okay.
I just want to be as precise as possible because I know that like it'll be weaponized against me if I'm not.
I agree. I 100% agree. But I don't think anyone will use me as a person who destroyed you in a debate. Whatever. Let's just say I just want to fully explain it, right? So you accidentally said, or you made it sound like never call the cops, which is what we heard, right? And so at that time, or at that very moment, you wouldn't back down from that. You wouldn't refute that, you wouldn't correct that statement. So
how many seconds did it take for me to say, of course, there are circumstances where it's appropriate to call the cops?
I'll need to check back the video again. Maybe somebody in your chat or whatever can find out. But what I remember is that you said never call the cops on people who you think, who might be illegal immigrants, because there's so much more harm that can be done to them, which is true, right? But what Destiny was trying to say is, well, no, Hasan, I don't think you believe that. because there are specific situations where that could be true. And then we started going down the list, right? So you go from left extreme to, people are just outside. Then you keep on going more and more and more extreme until you find a point where, hey, there's actually a situation where you might call the cops on someone, even though they might look like they're illegal aliens or they're a person of color, and blah, 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 right?
Do you think if some, okay, so what about the principle of charitability here? Do you think that was a charitable interpretation? And do you think that that was like, do you think that that was a charitable way to interpret that sentiment and then continue off of like hypotheticals that got further and further away from the main subject, which was that, like I said, which was that like essentially school resource officers are generally a detriment in their presence in schools, and that like you can of course call police officers when there's like violence occurring at the school, but having school resource officers is not a good thing.
Okay, so two things. One, charitability. This is Destiny in full debate mode. You're gonna get very little of it. We've seen it over the years.
Okay,
so
but that's
point number
all
one.
right. Well, then, especially considering the fact that like I reached out to him in private before this full debate mode situation occurred, then that's just not like a good thing to do to someone that you are genuinely trying to arrive at the truth at, right? If that's not, if it's not truthfully what my position is,
everyone's molding. It's fine. Okay.
Okay, well, hold on. Okay. If the point of debates, as stated by Destiny, your Lord and Savior, is that we need to arrive at a truth, and if the truth of the matter in this circumstance is what I genuinely believe, then do you think it's better to approach the subject with a friend that you know in a charitable fashion, or is it better to approach the subject in a way where you are trying to find whatever kind of like problem you can with their argument in an effort to make sure that, your audience knows that Destiny is much smarter and much more knowledgeable on the issues that even I speak of, because he felt embarrassed that the Joe Biden incident happened on a debate.
Okay, so my memory isn't completely, whatever, 100%. But I remember during this, big meme war, there were shots fired on both sides. Okay, not only was Destiny molding on Twitter after the first one, I think it was Booty Judge, right? But I feel like there were some shots fired from your front too. So I think both people were angry and both people were, doing some big memes.
Of course. I wasn't the one who claimed that. I wasn't the one who claimed that like, oh, we could still be friends, except you are a dishonest propaganda agent. And,
okay, I think we're getting
hold on, and that not only you, but like your entire company is lying, and that your entire company is lying exclusively because like, you have affiliations with the Justice Democrats. Like, again, and then what else? Pete Buttigieg is like insanely homophobic. It's kind of shocking that Hasan said something like that.
That's lie.
What?
He didn't say insanely homophobic.
No, he said that's insanely homophobic in regards to like someone saying Buttigieg is when he found out that he literally said that, by the way. He literally said that's insanely homophobic. Okay?
Yes, he said okay, please. I don't want to talk about this. I think he's molding.
Wait, why don't you want to talk about this?
Because
that was the main point.
Like,
why are we walking away from it now?
Because it's which insult is worse and who did what, and then you said he, travels around the world trying to find girls that are 16 and all this other stuff.
Whoa. No. First of all, I never said that he travels around the world and tries to find girls that are 16. Secondly, the only fucking time I said trolling for like barely legal girls or whatever was literally like last week.
Okay, there were some other stuff. I'll get you some proof if you wanted to.
I said barely legal.
I don't want to talk about who did what. I'm just trying to explain to you, I guess initially would be hypotheticals and go on from there. But
wait, I'm sorry. Is 16 barely legal?
Depends on in America. Yeah, I think so.
He did say 18-year-olds, barely legal 18-year-olds.
It's still not. It was a
fucked up comment, but yeah, he did.
Yeah, no, certainly. I agree. It was an instance where I was fucking malding after a barrage of like literally alt-right level fucking arguments against both me, the Young Turks, the political advocacy that the Young Turks has done, and that like the candidates that the Young Turks has been able to like put in positions of power, from And at that point, it was oh my god, it was insane to fucking see that shit on top of like the fake woke, like cynical social justice appliance here from a guy who like says the F word and the N word in private, admittedly, and claiming that like it potentially could be insinuated that Buttigieg is homophobic. It seemed like Jordan Peterson level of argumentation there. And on stream to his audience, and he has consistently kept doing it. When I attack Destiny, I usually attack his really shit takes that are purposely inflammatory. When Destiny attacks me, he attacks like my company that I fucking work for and everything else. He like literally says like, oh, Hasan is 1%er. Like, why isn't he practicing what he preaches in regards to socialism? Like, that's a Sargon level argument.
Okay, can we? I just want to get back. We'll get back to this. We can get back to all the insults and everything.
Okay, can I
link
just
to
ask you
anything
one
in
thing
chat?
though? If I genuinely believe in like what TYT does, for example, despite like you know its flaws and shit, don't you think that it's reasonable for me to get mad at someone who I considered a friend until like I don't know 24 hours before that turned around and like started fucking spewing insane bullshit to his like gigantic audience, much bigger than mine, in an effort to like separate our two communities, and like basically reprogram them, and especially when I consider like what TYT has done in regards to like Wolfpack and Just Democrats to be significant, much more significant than a particular streamer sitting around jerking off, playing video games, and like talking to people on the internet.
Okay. Can we can get back to the insults or who did what? The whole question is, you know, who shot the first shot or whatever, right? We can go back, find the meme historian, see who did it first. But can we please just finish the hypothetical thing and we can get back into this?
Sure, let's go ahead.
So, do you still agree that extreme hypotheticals is only a debate tactic and you can never use it and whatever?
Wait, say that again. Sorry.
Do you understand the benefits of using extreme hypotheticals to find out what someone believes? Or do you think it's only
under
a
certain
debate tactic?
under certain circumstances, absolutely. So
Okay.
and I'll mention this again, like if it's a structurally sound or a fundamentally sound hypothetical, then it's applicable in that circumstance. But that's a very difficult thing to do in the heat of the moment. And
Okay, yeah,
and
I understand.
and Destiny, unfortunately, I mean, Destiny fortunately is very good at building out these analogies or at like throwing a hypothetical your way. But while extreme examples are good for framing, they're not necessarily good for having a good faith discussion. So it depends on what you actually believe. If you actually believe that like debates are how you arrive at these truths, then that's not like then extreme hypotheticals are not charitable, and you probably won't arrive at a truth. I use extreme hypotheticals from time to time as well. The Nazi thing, for example, like that's 100% on purpose. 100% on purpose. When you're talking to a Trump supporter about like the hat, the MAGA hat, and I turned around and said, "Well, what about a swastika? Do you think like it's impossible?" That's not because I'm like testing their fucking like moral system. Get the fuck out of here. We're not children. Even Destiny knows that that's not for like actually arriving at a fucking real truth. That's why he literally said, even in that conversation, I didn't even use the rape analogy yet.
Wait, what was the question?
My point is, it's not like if your opinion is for arriving at truth, like if you're genuinely trying to arrive at a truth during a debate, then using extreme hypotheticals is not the way to do it. But I functionally think that debates are just about winning rhetorically.
Okay. Yes, sorry, I'm back on track. The whole point of that extreme hypothetical that he used was because you said at that moment, even if you didn't mean it, it came across as you should never call the cops on blah 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 people, right? And so Destiny used the extreme hythetical to get
Destiny
you to
used
admit,
motivated reasoning to make an assertion before we started that I had an ACAB or whatever ACAB is means in his world opinion, that I just like genuinely don't think that we should ever call the cops, just like he thinks that
Okay,
genuinely
can
I'm
I
a
link you a
crypto
clip?
tanky.
Can I link you a clip? Where can I post a link you a clip? Just to get you a clip of you saying that. I don't know where to post it.
Just send it to one of the mods.
Okay, I'll send it to your boy Jeffy. He's cool.
Okay,
So that's the whole issue, is that even though you don't mean it and you didn't think it, whatever, we felt, or the community felt, or Destiny felt that you said, "Don't call the cops ever." And now, whole point of the hypothetical was for
Would you
you
say
to
that the
see that
community
there are people-
changes their opinion though on
What?
whatever like the community greatly changes its opinion on things depending on what Destiny thinks?
Yeah, probably. But I mean, you also exaggerate.
So it doesn't
the
really
thinking, right?
matter. So it
If
doesn't
you
really matter what like Destiny's framing. I mean, or what the community thinks in that circumstance, because they're like literally, they're literally basing it off of Destiny's framing.
Yeah, but the whole point, that whole argument happened. Like Hasan, you don't understand. All of this happened was because you said, "Don't call the cops," whatever. And even though you didn't mean it or whatever phrase it sounded like to us and everyone else that you meant it, right? And then when Destiny tried to get you to admit it, no, there are situations where you can call the cops. You were too. It seemed like you were too stubborn to admit you were wrong, and so you kept doubling down. And you didn't want to admit it. That's what it sounded like.
Mm-hmm.
And
Then why did I? Then why did I concede that there were, of course, points where you could call the cops?
can you watch the clip?
Are you gonna give me like the fucking like 30-second to a 60-second conversation over like a 3-hour debate and say like, well, this is your point of view here?
Well, what I'm saying is you didn't, or I
The
feel
clip
like.
seems to be out of
Sorry, I'm
context
not,
and the
I
VOD
don't know
is
the
gone.
exact- I don't have the whole thing memorized.
Hold on,
right,
hold
but
on,
I
hold
don't
on.
know
All right,
when
all right,
you
I'm playing it.
actually-
I'm playing it. Shh,
So
stop
should
talking.
people just never ever call the cops ever?
Sorry,
then?
buddy.
Yeah, I suggest against that. Yes.
Okay. I mean, we just have like a totally fundamental view of this, I guess. And
Okay.
have that
What's the
liability.
entry point in that clip you clipped out? That's when he's talking about like outside of their apartment, right? Like outside of his house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Don't you think that that's like? Don't you think that that's exactly what I just said?
What do you mean?
What did I tell you in the beginning of this conversation?
Yeah, that you obviously didn't. You don't agree, or you agree that there are situations you call it, but then you initially
Yeah, and
wanted
what did
to
I
say
say
that.
even before that? I said that specifically when answering his question about like being outside of his apartment or whatever, being outside of his apartment and there's like random people outside, but would you call the
Mhm.
cops in that situation? I said, no, I would never ever call the cops in that situation. Or he said, would you never ever call the cops? And I said, yeah, I wouldn't.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me just listen to that clip. Okay, yo, Saucy, stop sending us stupid ass. Send me the whole VOD, dude. Just send the whole VOD.
The DGG brain trust in action, boys.
Honestly, no. I mean, I don't even want to talk about that. I want to speak exactly the hypothetical. These morons keep forcing me to spam that
Wait,
clip
what
at
is
me.
this? They're gaslighting you. This is what you said right
Have
after?
that liability.
Yes.
Okay. So should people just never ever call the cops ever then?
Yeah, I suggest against that. Yes.
Okay. I mean, we just have like a totally fundamental view of this, I guess. And
Yeah. But to some extent, for certainly that is.
no, not to some extent. We are completely diametrically opposed on this issue.
I guess.
Have that liability.
Yes. Wait.
But basically, at least you understand that, like,
Okay.
the whole point of the
So should
hypothetical,
people
right,
just
is to
never
find out
ever
what you
call the
actually
cops
mean.
ever then?
Hassan, maybe you're right. I
Um,
don't have the whole
yeah,
thing
I
memorized,
highly-
but what from my memory is that you didn't really refute it or concede that, hey, you were
Okay,
actually.
then why would I? But why would I then say like these are? If I believe truly,
Mhm.
if I truly believe that no, you should never ever call the cops in any circumstance whatsoever, right? If I truly believe that, then why did I like? Do you think that like I was owned by logic immediately after? Like that's how stupid I am that I like legitimately believe that like you should never ever 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 call the cops, and then all of a sudden Destiny's like, well, what about if your mother is being raped? And I'm like, oh no, I didn't consider that. Like, is that how DGG operates? Like they actually think that like everyone
Oh my
Destiny
God.
talks to is just that stupid?
Again, if you want, I'll get a full analysis to make sure exactly when you said it, whatever. But
Hold
that's
on, Jeffy
the
just
general
sent another
feeling.
clip.
I don't know
One
if they're gonna
second.
rob my house or whatever, and I call the cops.
Yeah, here.
Really, like make me nervous. I don't know if they're gonna rob my house or whatever, and I call the cops. Let's say that the cops show up, they arrest these two people for
That's too
loitering
many
or being
months.
threatening or whatever, and then they find out that they're illegal immigrants, and they refer them to ICE and they get deported. Am I, as a homeowner, like the person that like reported them, am I now complicit in like deporting illegal immigrants? Is that on me? Do I have that liability?
Yes.
Okay. So should people just never ever call the cops ever then?
Yeah, I suggest against that. Yes.
Okay. I mean, we have.
What did he say in the beginning of that? He said like he said that there's people standing outside of my apartment or house, and I suspect that they're gonna rob me or whatever. Like, would you call the cops? I said, yeah. I suggest against that.
You said yes, call the cops?
No, I said if people are just fucking outside of your house, if people are just standing outside of your fucking house, and like I said, if people are standing outside of your house under those circumstances, no, you shouldn't call the cops.
Okay, and then the next step was if they are committing a crime or about to commit a crime or very likely about to commit a crime, or, you know.
Then again, it just depends on the circumstances.
Okay, but so then why would you guys have this conversation if you already admitted that you can call the cops sometimes?
Wait, what?
Why
Say
would
that
you
again?
two be arguing on this hypothetical about when to call the cops if you had already conceded, hey, Destiny, there are exactly, you know what, there are situations where you can call the cops. I was, you know, exaggerating when I said never call the cops.
Wait, why would I? I'm sorry. No, the proper answer in that circumstance would be, why are you giving me this? Why are you moving the goalpost to like from loitering outside of your apartment to like a person that's like potentially about to get raped? In that circumstance, it's acceptable to call the cops. In some circumstances, it's acceptable to call the cops.
Yeah, but you didn't say yes. You couldn't answer the question.
No, I said I don't know. It just depends on the circumstance. That's literally what I said.
The whole point of the hypothetical was for you to admit, yes, there are situations where you can call the cops.
But I did
Right?
say that. I did say that there are situations in which you can call the cops in this conversation. Maybe not immediately after, but I did say that.
And that's, I mean, that is
Do
the
you
whole
think-
contention. That's the whole reason the whole hypothetical started, was because you didn't, right?
Okay. But did it stop after I did?
Okay, Hasan, I will go out and I will say this. You did not concede and you stubbornly kept on doubling down.
Okay. All right. So I didn't say at any point in that
Hasan
conversation,
said to some
I
extent
didn't say
there
at
were
any
clips
point in that
talking
conversation,
about when to
there are
call the
reasonable
cops and
circumstances in which
justifying
you can call the police
misunderstood.
officers.
This all boils down
Nope.
to him missing that.
I didn't say it at all.
N omega lol.
Okay. All right. I know 100% I did say it, but I'm sure someone will clip it, and then I'm sure everyone in DG will concede, and then they'll turn around and say, "Wow, we were so wrong." All of a sudden we're going to change our minds on this.
Hasan, if you find that proof, I will come back on and apologize. I'll even apologize to
I
Miles
don't give a
Chung.
fuck about your personal apology. Like, it doesn't matter.
But that's the whole point, right? Is because some group believes you didn't do it.
Wait, didn't I?
Your
just have like
your side believes you
Wait,
did,
Wait,
and
hold on,
nobody has the
hold on
proof,
1 second.
right?
Let me read. Yeah. But to some extent, for certainly, that is.
no, not to some extent. We are completely diametrically opposed on this issue.
Oh,
It's really like making me nervous. I don't know if they're gonna rob.
Yeah.
Am I apologizing to Ian?
No.
That
The
we are
clip that I'm watching right now, where I say to some extent, I mean like to some extent, you don't call the cops for that situation. Whereas, but there is another place where I did say it. I said it hard enough. I said it again after in that conversation. Like there are multiple places where I literally said, that, where I literally said like it's of course acceptable to
What a
call the
crazy
cops.
night.
Do you have the clip?
What? Hold on. Where the fuck is it? I don't have the fucking VODs anymore. God.
And okay,
fucking
wait,
damn it.
Hasan. What about if you said, "Hey, it's okay to call the cops, but I personally wouldn't"? Do you think you might have said that?
In one of the in the
sorry.
like
I'm out of
potential
control.
rape
I
scenario
apologize for
where
that.
we don't know if she was going to get raped or not, I did say that. Yeah.
So it's okay to call the cops, but I personally wouldn't.
Oh no, VODs are gone on both you and Steven's channel because of the ban. Wait, how the fuck did you guys find this?
I think clips are saved, but you can't see the actual VOD.
I said I would suggest against that. And when pushed on it further later, and even I think in that conversation as well, I mentioned the reasons for why this is not a black and white issue. And the real reason why it's not a black and white issue is because in certain circumstances, cops provide more harm than good when they come into a situation, assuming, especially when the assumed suspects are people of color, where they can take physical action, violent action at times. And that was precisely what my point of view was. Hey, the clips are saved, but not VODs. Okay.
Wait, so do you see
Okay.
the issue with
Okay, so
saying
then
you can call the cops, but I personally wouldn't?
Yeah, I do see the issue with that, because I'm a big boy in comparison to a random woman, but we don't know what the fucking situation is. Like,
Well,
it's
no,
in Destiny's mind. It's in Destiny's mind. It could literally be okay, how about this? It could literally be fucking Ronda Rousey and like two handicapped gentlemen that are suspiciously like walking behind them. Do you understand why vague hypotheticals in this circumstance are, especially when I admit that they're circumstantial, are silly?
Yeah, but the whole point of the
And
hypothetical.
basing your entire argument off of that, like as though it's black and white, are insane.
Hasan, the hypotheticals aren't specifically talking about that situation, right? They're hypotheticals. The whole point is for you to see that there are situations where you can call the cops.
Dude, of course there are situations when you can call the cops.
Yeah, but
I believe that. But when
didn't
he's
sound like
bringing
it,
that
though.
up, I have to also qualify, or at the very least clarify, that like there is harm as well that we're overlooking, and then we
I know.
move past it.
Okay, but Hasan, can I make an equivalent
Do you
hypothetical?
think? Okay, wait, hold on. Is the implication here literally that if I thought that this woman was going to get raped, that she shouldn't call the cops? Is everyone at DGG literally saying that a woman who is about to get raped, Hasan Piker believes that a woman who's about to get raped does not think that she should call the cops?
Okay.
Are you that fucking stupid at DGG? Is the DGG brain
fully
trust
finish?
literally that stupid?
Let me fully finish my point, okay?
No. Finish this fucking point. Answer my question.
Yes, I will fully answer the question, okay?
You think that I genuinely
can.
believe, just answer, yes or no. Do you think that I genuinely believe that a woman who is about to get raped should never call the cops?
Let me fully answer the question.
Okay.
I'll fully answer your question if you let me, Hasan, okay?
Okay, go ahead.
I personally don't think so. Most people don't think so. But the point is, you couldn't say it in the debate, and you
Because
kept
that's not what he
doubling down.
said. Because that's not what the fucking situation is.
You kept being stubborn, and you wouldn't admit it to Destiny's face, which is why people said you're being weaselly, or you're not admitting it, or blah, 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 blah. Right? That's the whole contention.
Okay.
So I honestly feel like if you had said at that moment very clearly, and maybe Destiny wasn't molding and he actually heard clearly, that
So you
said,
understand that
hey,
he's not being charitable. You understand that he's trying to pin me down to a certain point. And even in that circumstance, it's not about me losing losing the conversation to Destiny. It's about mentioning additional context, because that is what I do. And talking
Yes,
about
but
talking about how
Hasan,
there could be negative circumstances, that's actually not appropriate. You need to say yes or no, just so you could get rolled over by daddy.
the point he's trying to get to nail you down on is that yes, there are some situations where you can call the cops on people of color, even though it might have negative effects on them.
I did say that, by the way. You know
Okay,
what? You know how he followed that up later. By the way, when we were talking about it on Twitter, when I said that, he again
On Twitter.
Yeah, when we talked about this exact same circumstance on Twitter, he did not concede. Like, he kept going off the point that I had said, like that. Oh no.
Yeah, but okay, this is past. Okay, I'm talking about pre-molding and past molding. Okay. After that shit show,
but you can't.
you guys
but
are
that,
both
but
doing
that
dumb
is
stuff.
indicative of this person's like the way that he's arguing. Like, why the fuck would I just sit there and be like, yes, you're right, in a potentially vague scenario that you have created in your mind that I don't know, like that.
It's a hypothetical. They're
But
not
he
real
did that.
people.
He
There's
added
nobody
it, dude.
really
He
getting
said
raped.
a woman is walking, and two
She's
people are
not
walking
real.
behind them. And then she said, well, what if it's at night and she's getting raped? Like, what the fuck?
Okay, but it's a hypothetical. All you have to.
That's
it's the
most
point
idiotic.
Of, it's
This
not
is
about
like
the
this is
actual
literally an idiotic conversation to have.
Yeah, but the whole reason he started this hypothetical was why? Because you said Kamala Harris was what? A really horrible person for something to do with, I think, cops in schools or something like that, right?
Oh my god, you don't even fucking remember what the. Oh my god, this is killing me. This is like literally killing me. This is the perfect representation of how DGG operates, which is like pinpoint a fucking insanely idiotic point in the conversation that we all know you don't even believe, and let's argue on that. That is literally my fucking problem with DGG and Bloodsport and like the way Destiny argues in general.
Nice, friendly conversation, sir.
Oh my fucking god, I want to fucking murder myself in a video game. Holy
I don't want
shit.
you to do that, Hasan. I think you're a very lovely person, but can you please stay on topic?
Dude, how
Yes.
do you not fucking get that, like, if the main point of contention is not even important to you, and what's important
The main
to
point
you
of contention was you can call cops on people of color, Hasan.
No, the
That was
main point of
main
contention. No, the main point of contention was originally. The main point of contention was originally that that Kamala Harris backed a policy that had negative consequences and then lied about not knowing the negative consequences of that policy. That was the main point of contention. But then Destiny turned around and was like, well, you know, you misworded it. I mean, there is a gigantic difference between what you said and what is reality. And then I turned around and said, we have proof. What is this?
Totally valid question. Let's say that a woman gets raped by somebody that's
Are you done?
Hispanic. Do you think that when she reports it to the cops, is she being complicit now and getting people deported?
Of course not.
Wait, why not? Why not? Why not? Why not?
Because she's victimized by a fucking crime. It's not a random misdemeanor of a student. Like, she's being victimized by a fucking crime by a stranger or even someone that she knows.
Sure,
That's
okay.
entirely
So
different
let's
than,
say,
like,
let's say
wait,
that,
oh
sure.
my
So-
god, it almost seems like as soon as he mentioned rape that I said, of course not. That's so weird.
Can you link timestamps?
That's so weird, man. It almost seems like none of you motherfuckers actually care about what my opinion
please
is,
link the
but
timestamp?
whether or not Daddy is angry and how angry Daddy is in a fucking argument. Are you gonna apologize? Are you gonna suck my fucking cock too?
Are you asking me personally?
No, I don't want you to do that. Here. It doesn't matter. Here, it's like it's in the fucking here. It's in literally the VOD. You fucking dumb motherfuckers. Oh.
I don't appreciate that comment, Hasan. Wait, did you link it?
I did in the chat. As soon as he changed the, oh my god, one of the fucking morons, one of the morons at DGG Brain Trust goes, oh, so your answer is based on knowing the future? No, dumbass. My answer is based on the dynamic of the fucking hypothetical. If it's a vague one, why the fuck would I immediately assume that someone is getting raped, you fucking idiot? Like, that's the length you'll go to? That's the length you'll go to fucking defend a person who does not care about you or know your existence? Holy fuck. Oh, this is so stupid. Okay. All right. Did you click on the video? Did you see it? Let's run it again.
Like are we just gonna take 5 minutes to listen to the video?
Sure,
No,
okay.
just like
So
I played it already. I played it.
Sure.
Everyone
So-
heard it. If you want to go listen to it, it's like literally 30
Totally
seconds.
valid question. Let's say that a woman gets raped by somebody that's Hispanic. Do you think?
Okay,
that when she
give me
reports
30
it to the
seconds.
cops, is she being
Let's say a woman gets raped by somebody who's Hispanic. I dislike the video. my little fucking rebellion. I think we watched it on stream before, so that's why. I'm gonna read it to you because I don't care about you fucking watching it. Let's say the woman gets raped by somebody that's Hispanic. Do you think that when she reports it to the cops, is she being complicit now? I'm getting people to put. Oh wait. Oh, you can't really hear my fucking thing.
being complicit now and getting people deported?
Of course not.
Wait,
no,
why not?
Of
Why not?
course
Why not?
Is what I say, and he says, "Why not? Why not?
Why not?
Because she's victimized. Because she's being victimized by a literal fucking crime. By a fucking crime. It's not a random misdemeanor of a student. Like she's being victimized. Like it's not the same as a random misdemeanor by a student. Victimized by a fucking crime by a stranger or even someone that she knows.
Sure.
Oh, sorry. But then he said,
Okay. So let's say that. Sure.
oh,
so,
sorry. And then he said, okay. And then he moved on because, you know, he didn't get the answer that he was looking for. Also, again, we're so many steps removed at this point than the original point of contention.
Which was?
which was that Kamala Harris, again, and I kept repeating it, and I kept going back to fucking the goalposts, but we moved further into the hypothetical. This is what I mean when I say this is a debate tactic, per se. When you act like you care about the consistency, or you act like you care about the boundaries of someone's moral system in an effort to make it seem like they're being super unreasonable by asking them questions, and then when they describe the situation at hand and like actually give you the boundaries, you just keep going off that hypothetical when the original point of contention was not this at all. The original point of contention was actually whether or not Kamala Harris fucking knew the outcome of her policies and then lied about it, which is precisely what was the truth there. I said I misworded some elements of it, and that should have been enough.
Well, what did you misword?
The main difference was I said Kamala Harris backed the policy that would get schools to deport. Wait, first of all, you need to apologize. Let's just get started on that.
Apologize for what?
For just not watching the entire video and for months having this opinion.
I apologize for not watching the video.
And also just lying.
Lying about what?
Lying about what my opinion was and saying that I had not said things that I had actually said.
I never lied about your opinions.
You literally... Wait, what do you think a lie is?
I said... Okay, let me restate it, Hasan, because what you said in the debate was, quote unquote, you shouldn't call the cops on people of color. And then Destiny tried to narrow you down and say there are situations where you can do it, right? That was the whole point of contention?
That was not the whole point of contention. Don't fucking muddy the waters. You literally said... You literally said... You never said that you shouldn't call the cop. You never said that, yes, you should call the cops if a woman is being raped.
Right. Correct.
So why did you lie, and are you apologetic for lying? And
so the issue is that
and then
when
trying
you
to
say,
turn her, and then trying to turn back the goalpost to a place where that
correct.
feels
Thank you for reminding me.
to you.
Hasan, you brought me back right into the center, right? So the issue is when you personally say stuff like, okay, yeah, in that situation you can call the cops, but I wouldn't. I personally wouldn't. I wouldn't.
But that's not the point that I. Nope, that wasn't that at all. That literally wasn't that point. This is a totally separate point, a totally separate instance where I said, oh, of course you can call someone when it's when there's rape afoot. So don't try to run away. Do not try to fucking turn around. You said you would apologize if I showed you a point in which I openly admitted, yes, of course it's reasonable to call the cops in a situation like that. So why is this so hard? Why is it so hard to apologize?
I apologize, Hasan.
Good.
But I mean, do you understand? Like that's like the whole conflict started when like the whole cop thing, and then it took like so long for you going down hypothetical to finally say that yeah, it's bad to do that in that situation, which you did say, right? Correct? You did say it.
Wait, can you repeat that again? I was basking in the glory of finally getting someone in fucking DGG to apologize.
Don't worry, I don't mind at all.
Okay,
right?
Go ahead.
So the issue is that it took you so you had the disagreement, right? And then we had to run down I think 6 or 7 different hypotheticals to finally narrow it down into a point where you could finally proudly admit that yes, in this situation.
Oh, now you're moving the goalpost. Now you're saying that like first because at first
Hasan,
it was
I already
like,
apologized to the previous goalpost.
No. Okay, but like so now the conversation is like I didn't say yes fast enough. Do you not understand why? Do you not understand why I didn't say yes fast enough?
Yes, because you wanted to properly explain that just whatever your background and exact situation, and not to a broad generalization that yeah, you can call cops on brown people because it's safe or whatever. You didn't want to say yes to a blanket, a black or white answer that could be misconstrued by other people, just make you say something you didn't want to say.
Yeah.
Right? Is that correct? Or
yeah, I think that Destiny wasn't like assessing my boundaries, but instead just absolutely moving the goalpost like you are currently. Now that you've apologized for the previous goalpost, now it's like not fast enough. I should have conceded fast enough. And if we're talking about if we're talking about a concession that was fast enough, why the fuck would I concede? Why would I concede to a vague hypothetical? That was literally the reason.
Hasan admitted. Let everyone know Hasan has admitted it.
What?
Hasan said yes. You can call the cops in situations.
Wait. Yeah, of course. Of course you can
Hasan
call
said
the
yes.
cops.
Everyone in Twitch chat. Hasan said yes.
Wait, why do you think people would be confused by that? They know that that's my opinion, dude.
I just want to restate it so everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, okay. Well, I said yes in the video that you just literally apologized for. So
correct.
So now
but the issue
let's
is,
move on. Let's move on to a different point here. Let's move on to an actually interesting point. So if I had said yes in that conversation, and I had said yes numerous times in that conversation, and Destiny still operated on the idea that I said no to calling the cops, and DGG literally still to this day, maybe there are still some people in DGG that think that I had never said yes to calling the cops. What does that say about the sycophantic parasocial relationship that you've developed inside of your community there, and whether or not you guys are like actually trying to arrive at any sort of truths, or you guys are just like a fucking circle jerk that instead of like focuses on alt-right ideology and Sargon of Akkad, you then just focus on whatever Destiny's opinion is at the time.
You know what that is, Hasan?
What is that?
That's a feels bad man right there. It's just pathetic, honestly. If that were to happen, it would just be really, really pathetic.
Are you admitting that what happened previously then for all of these people to do that, that's a pathetic instance then? Is that what you're saying? Because it seems like you're either not listening to what I'm saying, or I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying.
No, I'm saying in your example, what you just said, if everything were to happen the way that you just eloquently demonstrated, then yeah, it would be pretty shitty. It would be pretty pathetic.
So you're saying if what happened, like if what literally happened were to happen?
No, I'm saying I'm agreeing to what you just previously stated.
Okay, well,
you want to restate it?
All right, well, it is what happened. So interesting. Anyway, are there any other issues that you have, or do you need
but yeah, do you think that if you didn't have that big issue and we didn't go down 6 hypotheticals, do you think if you said yes, there are situations where you can call the cops on people, and then Destiny moved on and whatever, do you think
Destiny would have moved on?
The problem is that by the time
after that? The whole point, if you had never said the whole issue, you said from the very beginning.
Do you think Destiny would have moved on, or said okay and then continued to use examples?
Yeah, I think in this example, if you concede, Hasan, what I'm saying is in the argument, if you had conceded and said yes, there are situations where you can call the cops, right? Yeah, I think you guys will still be best friends. You had met at TwitchCon, maybe suck your dick or something.
That's really interesting that you think that way, because
I think you guys will still be best friends, Hasan.
So then if I were to show you the rest of the VOD after I conceded, I just saw you fucking steal. Sorry. Guess you're out of here, buddy.
Sure. So let's say that
14-year-olds out of this country.
Sure. So let's say that a woman is at
Wait, am I muted?
She starts walking
Hello?
home and she's being followed by some people and she's getting nervous. She doesn't know if she's going to be assaulted or what.
It almost seems like Destiny kept asking for hypotheticals after I conceded in that literal video. Only 3 seconds after. I didn't mute you. I was just playing the video.
Oh, gotcha.
He kept going. It almost seems like we don't need a hypothetical to know that. It almost seems like he literally fucking kept going. Imagine that. That's crazy. That's so crazy. But I guess he was like trying to test out my moral system, right?
I think he was just trying to get you to admit that there was a situation where you could call the cops.
Dude, come on. Come on, dude. You're literally okay. All right, you're right. Anyway, thank you for coming. Unless you have additional things that you want to get off your chest, or because I conceded and then he continued. So
I think I have some topics here. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Well, you're taking away Chad Vice time right now.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I apologize, and I don't want to slow it down. I think there are some people who also want to debate you, but I don't know if you guys are gonna.
Oh, we'll do this again, because this was a lot of fun.
I think you should do a weekly DGG debate. I think
a lot of fun. It's genuinely a lot of fun. DGG, shocking. When, just like Destiny, when actually talking to someone, they turn from a lion to a little pussycat. So
okay,
that's exciting.
So I think we can maybe better define the timestamps and VODs, I think, right? Be better going forward, getting some actual stuff down.
Oh, okay. Or maybe you guys could just like actually watch the VOD instead of just listen to Destiny and whatever kind of shit he shovels down your throats, you guys don't just regurgitate. I don't know.
I don't think that would be very
I
appetizing.
feel like
so I
that's
don't think
you
that would be
admitted
it.
earlier that would be pathetic, right? If he led you astray. So
No, I think it'd be pathetic if you had, whatever, conceded the point and he kept on going and then he somehow gaslit his whole community into believing something that didn't happen. That would be pretty shitty if everyone went along with it, I think.
Okay.
If that were to happen in that hypothetical situation, right?
Okay. All right.
I think there were some people that wanted to talk to you. Dask Rubbing
Yeah,
wanted
we'll
to
do.
really
We're
talk
not
to
gonna
you.
do that. I can't fuck over
Oh,
my
okay.
community any further.
Yeah, that's fine,
I'm
that's
gonna
fine, that's
do.
fine.
This is not the DGG hour. All right. We've been doing
True,
this for like
true.
3.5 hours, 4 hours. We're gonna do Chad Vice now. Okay. Thank you
Okay.
for coming on, and we'll do it again. We'll do the DGG stuff again. All right. Bye. Okay. I don't care that that's literally what happened. He's never gonna concede to that point. It doesn't matter. All right. We'll do Hasan v DGG again later because I think it was like pretty good. I think that was fun and relatively productive. Hasan sounds like a rich, spoiled bully. Last 30 minutes, no humbleness at all. Okay, buddy, sure. Just fuck off already, dude. All right, let's go. All right, time to do Chad Vise, ladies and gentlemen. Insanely pointless conversation. And I apologize for how many monthly gift subs do I got to provide? 100. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. This seems like it'll further polarize it. I think the communities cannot get further polarized than they currently are. All right, who do we bring in first? I'm just gonna sit in the VIP corner with Jeffy and Frogan. What's up? What's up? What's up? You're on stream. What's up, Jeffy and Morgan?
What's up?
Hello.
What's going on, guys? All right, so yeah, bring in whoever you guys want to bring in. I think 39 Daff said she wanted to join. I don't know if she's like still into it or not, but that would be cool.
All right.
The first person's ready to go if you want me to bring them in.
Okay, let's do it.
All right.
What up? What up, Hogan?
Hey. You're in the dude?
I am.
What's going on, dude?
Pretty good. Pretty good. I'm a little nervous, so I might talk fast, so I apologize in advance, but
Okay, don't worry about it. I'm gonna bring in some
Not
other
worried
people
about it.
down the line. I'm gonna bring in some other people down the line, so that they can also offer advice.
Okay, yeah. That's cool.
All right. But yeah, what's up? What's going on?
Not much. Just having some guy troubles, which is weird because I'm talking to like a straight dude about a gay relationship. But I mean, I think you know stuff. So.
Oh, I know stuff.
Well, I hope you do. So
I have more experience with gay folk and their relationships, and like having these sorts of conversations than like the average normie straight guy. So it's good. It's okay.
I mean, looking at your like Instagram like comments, I can tell. But anyways, I'm kind of like distracting myself. So there's this one guy at my college residence. He's like at the front desk, so he's like a bit older, but like I'm kind of catching feelings for him. Like he's really cute. He's kind of an e-boy, but you know, like people make mistakes anyways. But he's essentially like a really like cute dude. I know he's gay, so it's not like there's like a weird situation, but like I don't know how to really like move things forward. Like, you know, I talk to him a lot, but I just don't have him on social media or his number or anything like that because I'm kind of afraid to ask about it. And like, I don't really have any other like relationship sort of experience outside of like a high school sort of thing, and that ended like a shit show. So
Okay.
that's my problem.
It's just like, holy shit! Wait, hold on. I mean, it seems pretty simple. Like, do you have anything cool going on on college campus, like that you would want to go with someone?
Not really, no. Because usually for parties, it's like I don't know until like the night of, so it's like, oh shit, you know, I can't
freaking
really like
Zoomers.
say it. And he's usually on like the night shift anyways for like the front desk.
Okay, I mean it's gonna be pretty simple advice, which is just shoot your shot, forehead. But
Yeah, but the
it doesn't have to
problem
be
is
a
that
party
I'm bad
though.
at shooting my shot.
What?
I just, for some reason, I get all nervous when I'm like shooting my shot. Then it's like,
Yeah, but you're not
I
nervous to be
get,
in front of 3,200 people right now talking
yeah, but
about
it's
it.
different because it's like internet people. It's different.
I mean, okay. Oh,
I'm so sorry, man.
no. I'm just trying to figure out like if there is a situation that is like perfect for you to like invite someone along with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you
Do
mean.
you guys have like? Do you guys have? I don't know. Do you guys have like interests that align or?
Like, kind of. We're both kind of like artsy in a way. Though
Okay.
we've never like talked about like music and stuff, but I might ask him out to like a Charlie XCX concert, maybe.
Yeah, it needs to be the delicate balance you need to strike, which is nothing like too crazy, nothing too much so you don't freak him out, but like
Okay,
something
yeah.
that's cool also so it doesn't seem insignificant. And Charlie XCX concert seems pretty cool. Yeah, I
Oh,
really
yeah.
like that.
She's fucking great, so it would be cool to see her live.
So do that. Well, that's great. There you go.
All right, appreciate it. I know it's a bit sort of like easy, but like I'm kind of, like I said, I'm always kind of nice about this shit, so I really appreciate it, man.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. That's
All right.
problem solved. That's crazy. Are you
Alright.
happy with that?
I'm happy with that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah, have a
right.
good one.
All right, who else we got in here? Damn, dude. This is so much my community is so much better than DGG, man. So easy to talk to.
We have one of your greeters. He is your Zoomer correspondent. You killed him on the Minecraft stream. Rolando's up next.
Okay, all right.
right,
Can someone get 39 Daft to come on? Did she say that she wants to come on or no? Or were you guys debating me? She's live right now. And I think Raj might come on too. I just like hit him up, but
all right.
hold on. I'm just gonna spam discord.gg/Hasan. Or can I even do that?
Yeah. He's here. My
Wait,
man.
no, it got timed out.
Wait, what?
I got timed out from her chat because I wanted to put a link in there.
Oh, from her chat. I thought
Yeah.
you meant your own chat.
Hasan, send your Discord link, LMAO. Okay, anyway, whatever.
Okay, apparently she said she would, but she doesn't know how to.
That's why discord.gg/Hasan. That's why I fucking linked it. I tried to link it.
Clip it and ship it.
Anyway, whatever. I'm such a boomer, goddammit. All right, let's keep going.
Orlando.
Oh shit. How you doing, Hasan?
What's going on?
Oh, pretty good, pretty good.
I'm sorry.
All right, what's the deal? What's the dealio, Rolando? Talk to me. What's the problem?
So, first order of business, how do I make Jeffy my gamer girl, girlfriend?
Who?
No, I'm kidding, Jeffy, don't ban me. Okay. Oh no. Unironically, so I have a problem with like texting.
Sexting or texting?
Texting.
Okay.
So like I'm not like socially inept, like if I'm at a party or whatever, I can like socialize with people or whatever and like pick up girls or whatever and get their number. But like I can't like hold a conversation while texting. You know what I mean? Like I just can't like there's no groove. Like I under text, I can't keep a convo.
Dude, it's hard, man. It's not easy to text for sure. You just like sometimes the best thing to say is just really dumb shit. Like I feel like one of the things
Like
that we
eat my ass.
No, that's not really. That's a very loaded statement. You can't just say something like that. You just gotta fucking dial it back and realize that like it's just a regular conversation. But I feel like we place a lot of emphasis. We place a lot of emphasis on like exactly what we're gonna say. Like every text has to be perfect when it shouldn't be that way.
So I gotta ask her, can I eat your ass?
Hold on, I'm pulling in 39 Daff in here as well. Maybe she has a better take on this. Wait, is she in here in the general lobby? I don't even know. Can you guys pull her in? I don't see it, but anyway, yeah. Don't say can I eat your ass? That's not good.
But yeah, like I can't like in like socially, like at a party or whatever. Like I can reach the point where I can get this girl's number or whatever. But like after that, like when I try to like text after, I'm just like whatever. And it's the same for like Tinder.